Chapter 431, Wreaking Havoc in Shenyuan Kingdom 2 in 1, You know Little Su and Little Ling. Sun Qiong frowned. I've met them once. Hearing him address 4-star master teachers in such a manner, the corner of Jin Songhai's lips twitched. Those two were powerful figures in the Myriad Kingdom alliance, and yet, in this plump man's mouth, they seemed as though insignificant small fries. His head spun frenziedly. Since you know them, then it won't be a problem to tell you then. Sun Qiong's expression finally alleviated slightly upon seeing the fear on the other party's face, and he revealed, the old master, Xianxia, is a master teacher. As for his rank, he has never revealed it before, so I don't know either. However, Susha has once hinted that his capability has definitely reached the level of a 6-star master teacher. A 6-star master teacher. Gongzi, Jin Songhai, Jiyu Mu, and the others leaped in shock. Even the most formidable master teacher in the Myriad Kingdom alliance, the head of the Master Teacher Pavilion, Pavilion Master Kang, was only at 4-star pinnacle. He was still a far way off from reaching 5-star, needless to say, 6-star. In the ranking system of a master teacher, the higher the rank, the greater the difference between each ranking. Even though there was only a difference of 2 ranks between 6-star and 4-star pinnacle, there was actually a huge disparity in their cultivation. Even if all of the experts of the Myriad Kingdom alliance were to band together, they wouldn't be able to match up to an expert of this class. To think that the old master the other party was speaking about was such a formidable existence. It was no wonder why this plump man, despite being only at Dingli realm, could act so fearlessly before them. With such a huge backing, putting aside Zhizuan realm pinnacle cultivators and transcendent mortal experts, even the powerful fleeting cloud sect wouldn't dare offend him. On the other hand, Grand Elder Wei Yuqing's body shuddered, and he nearly fainted from shock. He had never seen the old master that Sun Qiong was speaking of, but he had seen the young master. It was the incomparably talented beast tamer Zhong. To that genius, taming a beast was as though a walk in the park, and even the incredibly difficult 10 beasts cage was no more than a slight workout for him. All along, he had thought that beast tamer Zhong might be the direct disciple of some high-ranked beast tamer. He never could have imagined that beast tamer Zhong's teacher would be a 6-star master teacher. It was no wonder why he was so formidable despite his young age. I must hurry back to inform the hall master of the matter. Grand Elder Wei Yuqing thought. That's right. However, the one who wishes to meet Hall Master Jiyu this time is young Master Zhongxian. Make some preparations and bring more poison along. At the very least, you won't panic when the time comes. Seeing the fear in everyone's eyes, Sun Qiong nodded his head in satisfaction. Who was Xianxia? As the butler of a master teacher whose ranking potentially exceeded 6-star, even if he didn't possess sufficient strength, he mustn't lose out in his disposition. If he were to be frightened by these small fries, how could he still proudly claim to be the old master's butler? Yes. Upon learning that senior granduncle was a 6-star master teacher, bits and pieces of Jiyu Mu's interaction with the other party gradually surfaced in his mind. Solving his affliction, helping him tame the lava beast, expelling the contract Jiyu from the great herb king's body. All of his feats were anything but ordinary. At that moment, he realized that this fellow might not necessarily be bragging. That senior granduncle Xianxia might truly be a person of such great means. Gongzi, is what he said true? Jin Songhai communicated telepathically with Gongzi. Gongzi might be young and his cultivation could not compare up to him, but he was extraordinarily sharp when it came to discerning people. His tone is confident, and there isn't the slightest hint of a lie in his words. That Xianxia probably isn't an ordinary figure. Gongzi replied calmly. Actually, it's not difficult to determine whether his words are true or not. Based on his words, his young master is probably at Shenyuan Royal City. If I recall correctly, we have to pass by there to reach Chenwu Royal City so we can go over to take a look. If the old master he speaks of is truly a 6-star master teacher, then befriending him would surely be beneficial. Gongzi continued, if that's not the case, you can handle the matter as you please. Yes. Jin Songhai hurriedly nodded. That plump man had spoken so confidently that even he was unable to gauge whether the other party's words were true or not. If this plump man was truly the subordinate of a 6-star master teacher, offending him could potentially be calamitous. Getting on bad terms with an expert of that caliber spelled certain doom. In any case, since they were heading for Xianxia Royal City anyway, they could take a look. Through assessing the young master the other party spoke of, they might be able to determine the authenticity of the other party's words. Upon coming to a decision, the duo decided to speak no more. As all of Gu Mu's possessions were kept in his storage ring, there was nothing for him to prepare. Soon, he was ready to set off. Thus, the group left the Poison Hall, headed in the direction of Xianxia Royal City. Who? In the chamber, Xianxia finally opened his eyes. Such a pity. Lamentation surfaced on Xianxia's face. Ever since Sun Qiong left, Xianxia had been immersing himself into his cultivation. Today was already the 3rd day since then. On the first day, his physical strength reached 30,000 ding. In the next 2 days, he expended a total of 5 droplets of Spirit Beast Blood Essence, but his strength had only reached 35,000 ding before reaching a bottleneck. There's nothing wrong my cultivation method, it's the Spirit Beast Blood Essence that became ineffective. Exhaling deeply, Xianxia shook his head. The Heaven's Path Golden Body 2 Dan was a formula to enhance one's physical body through absorbing Spirit Beast Blood Essence. As a cultivation technique compiled by the Library of Heaven's Path, it was impossible for there to be any problems with it. At the same time, Xianxia could sense that he hadn't reached the cap of his cultivation yet. The problem was that the Spirit Beast Blood Essence had lost effectiveness. All Xianxia could found in Xianxia Kingdom's Beast Hall was the blood essence of Grade 1 Spirit Beasts. An item of that rank was useful and powerful when one's cultivation was still weak. However, after reaching the strength comparable to a Zhizuan Realm Advanced stage, the effects of the blood essence had become minimal. Using an analogy, when there was a huge difference between the height of 2 connected ponds, the flow of water from the higher pond to the lower pond would be extremely fast. Eventually, when they finally reached the same height, the height of the lower pond would stop rising. This Grade 1 Spirit Beast Blood Essence was only sufficient for Xianxia to reach Zhizuan Realm Advanced stage. At this level, the height between both ponds would be already equal. No matter how much more Grade 1 Spirit Beast Blood Essence Xianxia absorbed, it would be difficult for his strength to progress. Immersing his consciousness into the state of his body, Xianxia saw that the blood droplets flowing through his body were round and satiated. They were dense as though mercury, and every single droplet had immense strength packed within it. They were in no way inferior to the Grade 1 Spirit Beast Blood Essence that Xianxia consumed before. Even though Xianxia's cultivation had not progressed by much in the past 2 days of cultivation, his efforts were not completely futile. He managed to reinforce his cultivation and adapt to his newfound strength. At the very least, he wouldn't lose control of his strength as he did back then in Master Lu Chen's house. I still have 7 droplets left. I'll give 3 of them to Yuan Dao and find a way to further awaken his Emperor's bloodline. As for the last 4, I'll give them to the Howling Firmament Beast. Since he still had remaining Spirit Beast Blood Essence, and there was no point for him to keep them, he might as well just give it away. Yuan Dao possessed the Emperor's bloodline, and the Spirit Beast Blood Essence was a treasure that could be used to awaken one's unique constitution. As for the Steel Fang Howling Firmament Beast, as Xianxia had yet to make a breakthrough in his Junchi cultivation, he was still unable to trigger a bloodline evolution in it yet. However, through channeling the energy contained within the Spirit Beast Blood Essence properly, raising its cultivation by 1 or 2 small realms could still be easily done. With the knowledge from the books contained within Xianluo Mountain Range and Xianxia Kingdom Beast Hall, coupled with the Eye of Insight, even without utilizing the Library of Heaven's Path, Xianxia was still capable of such a feat. In fact, putting aside Xianxia's unique abilities as a master teacher, just in terms of the capabilities of a beast tamer, he was superior to typical 3-star beast tamers. Having made up his mind, Xianxia immediately got to action. Summoning Yuan Dao and the Howling Firmament Beast over, he distributed the remaining 7 droplets of Spirit Beast Blood Essence and explained the method to using them clearly. After dealing with that matter, he saw Hall Master Xie Jiuchen walking over with a delighted expression. Beast Tamer Zhong, I've managed to gather all of the books that you require. In exchange for taming the Nightmare Beast, Xianxia demanded compensation in the form of cultivation technique manuals. After 3 days of hard work, the Beast Hall finally managed to gather 1,000 manuals of half Xizuan and Xizuan realm cultivation techniques each. Huala. As Hall Master Xianxia spoke, he flicked his wrist and 2 huge bookshelves appeared before Xianxia. An entire collection consisting of 2,000 books were placed in them. Fearing that Xianxia would be unsatisfied, the Beast Hall had used all of its connections and paid a heavy price to gather all of these books from the distinguished clans. As such, most of the cultivation techniques within the pile were actually rather decent. Even though they were only copies, being able to gather so many valuable manuals within a short span of 3 days proved testimony to the immense influence the Beast Hall wielded. You have my gratitude, Hall Master Xie. After a brief glance, Xianxia could instantly tell that the Beast Hall must have paid a heavy price for it. Grateful for the favor, Xianxia asked, "How is the taming of the nightmare beast coming along?" "That fellow's injuries are starting to recover, and it's no longer as resistant to us as it was. It's all thanks to Beast Tamer Zhong's help." Hall Master Xianxia nodded with a bright smile on his face. Even though the nightmare beast was reluctant to submit to the Beast Hall, it had already signed a contract to Xianxia, and Xianxia's words were law to it. Resigning to fate, its attitude toward the Beast Hall improved significantly. As time passed, even if the Beast Hall was unable to tame it completely, as long as they were able to build a good relationship with it, it shouldn't be a problem for them to rely on its help during times of crisis. That's good. Seeing that everything was going well, Xianxia nodded in satisfaction. Beast Tamer Zhong, you should continue on with whatever you're busy with. I'll take my leave now. Given that Xianxia had requested for these cultivation techniques, it was likely he was planning to cultivate or research them. Thus, deciding not to be a nuisance, Hall Master Xianxia left. As soon as the other party was gone, Xianxia immediately slid his fingers through the secret manuals to duplicate them in the Library of Heaven's Path. Compile. With a hushed exclamation, 2 secret manuals appeared in Xianxia's mind. They were the half Xizuan and Xizuan Realm Heaven's Path Divine Art manuals. Chuckling softly, Xianxia began browsing through them. It didn't take him long to complete the 2 books. Time to try cultivating it. Choosing not to waste his time, Xianxia sat down cross-legged, and with a flick of his wrist, a spirit stone appeared in his palms and he started cultivating. He had obtained 10 spirit stones from the Lin Ruoqian's storage ring, and 5 from winning the championship of the beast taming competition. In other words, there was a total of 15 spirit stones in Xianxia's hands at the moment. Back when Liang Qingming and Lin Long were smashed to meat paste by the Book of Heaven's Path, Xianxia was unable to find their storage rings. Even though there weren't many of them, he calculated that it should be sufficient to raise his cultivation considerably. Catcher! Catcher! The spirit stones that were sapped dry were reduced to powder. At the same time, an immense amount of spiritual energy surged into Xianxia's meridians, causing his cultivation to steadily grow stronger. Boom! Around 10 minutes or so later, his body jolted and his cultivation broke through Xianxia Realm Pinnacle to reach half Xizuan. Jiang Shu, Mo Qianxue, and the others had cultivated their entire lives, only to be kept out of this level. If they were to know that this fellow had only spent a dozen minutes to accomplish his feat, they would probably die from excessive vomiting of blood. Half Xizuan meant that one already had half a foot into Xizuan realm, and one's level of existence was already undergoing a metamorphosis. Even so, Xianxia didn't stop then. He continued absorbing spiritual energy from the spirit stones greedily. Catcher! An hour later, Xianxia's body jolted, and he had successfully reached Xizuan realm. Cultivating from Xianxia Realm Pinnacle to Xizuan Realm didn't even take him an hour. As expected of the Heaven's Path Divine Art. With sufficient spiritual energy, cultivating was no different from eating or drinking. The concept of bottlenecks didn't exist in Xianxia's training. Having achieved a breakthrough in his cultivation, Xianxia immersed himself in the sensation of having an immense amount of Zhenqi flowing through his body. At this moment, just his Zhenqi strength itself amounted up to 10,000 ding. He had truly stepped into the top ranks of the fighter realm. 2 hours later, coming to a stop in his cultivation, Xianxia sighed. Along with the rise in his cultivation, the demand for the quality and quantity of spirit stones was rising exponentially. In the past, 5 spirit stones were more than sufficient for him to reach Xianxia Realm Pinnacle. However, at this moment, 15 spirit stones were only barely enough for him to reach Xizuan realm. It wasn't even sufficient for him to reinforce his cultivation as a Xizuan realm primary stage cultivator. The main reason why Zhongxian's spirit stone expenditure was so exaggerated was due to the absurd purity of his Heaven's Path Xianxia, which in turn resulted in an absurdly high demand in the quality of spiritual energy that he absorbed. If it was any other Xizuan realm expert, a single low-tier spirit stone would be sufficient to raise their cultivation significantly. However, Zhongxian found himself unable to absorb most of the impure spiritual energy contained within the spirit stone. About 80 to 90% of it went to waste. Even so, the gains were great. Despite still being in Xizuan realm primary stage, his Xianxia strength had risen by another 5,000 ding to reach 15,000 ding. With such strength, he could easily crush any Xizuan realm primary stage expert. Along with my physical strength of 35,000 ding, I'll be able to defeat even Xizuan realm pinnacle expert. Coupled with the prowess of the Eye of Insight and Library of Heaven's Path, I'll be a match for even a half-transcension expert. Zhongxian's eyes gleamed in confidence. Adding both his Xianxia strength and physical strength together, his overall might summed up to an astonishing 50,000 ding. This made him significantly stronger than the 40,000 ding of strength that a typical Xizuan realm pinnacle cultivator possessed. Pairing that with his Heaven's Path battle techniques and the various abilities of a master teacher, it would be possible for him to defeat even a half-transcension expert. In the 4th day upon reaching Xianyuan Kingdom Beast Hall, as well as the 7th day that Lu Chong fell into coma, Zhongxian, from a Xianxia realm cultivator, finally gained the strength surpassing a Xizuan realm pinnacle expert. In other words, he finally possessed sufficient strength to avenge his student. Lu Chong, look at me. I shall avenge you. Zhongxian's eyes narrowed as he muttered hoarsely. Since he had already achieved sufficient strength, it was time for him to make a move. But before that, he had to gain some understanding of the overall strength of Xianyuan Kingdom first. Thus, walking out of the chamber, Zhongxian walked to another room, knocked on the door, and entered. How is it? Without wasting any words on pleasantries, Zhongxian immediately got straight to the point. Before his seclusion, on top of instructing Sun Qiong to look for Jiyu Mu and Hall Master Xie Jiuchen to gather the secret manuals, he had also arranged for Mo Yu to head to Xianyuan Kingdom to look into Ding Mu's affairs. If Zhongxian wanted to kill the Xianyuan Kingdom's crown prince, he mustn't allow the Beast Hall to hear of it. Otherwise, if word were to leak out and that fellow were to choose to hide in some remote corner in the world, given how large the alliance was, it would be impossible for Zhongxian to find him. Thus, he decided to entrust this job to Mo Yu. The other party probably had already looked into his affairs, and it wasn't too hard to dig up news of his students. It would be extremely easy for Zhao Ya and the others to be noticed and captured if he were to send them instead. Besides, Mo Yu was a one-star master teacher, and given her standing, it would be relatively easier for her to gather intelligence. I've gathered some news. A slight frown crept onto Mo Yu's forehead as she replied. As soon as Ding Mu returned to Xianyuan Kingdom, he immediately chose to hide in the Master Teacher Pavilion. Even now, he hadn't stepped out from it. Master Teacher Pavilion. Zhongxian's eyebrows shot up. Things always seemed to go in the worst direction. If one wanted to go against the conferred kingdom, the greatest obstacle wasn't the country itself but its Master Teacher Pavilion. The Master Teacher Pavilion had a responsibility to maintain peace and stability in its region, so it rarely allowed anyone to wreak havoc in its territory. Otherwise, given how many experts there were in the Myriad Kingdom Alliance, they could easily travel to a weaker kingdom and proclaim themselves as emperors. With such instability, the kingdom system would fall apart eventually. While killing the crown prince might result in chaos, it wasn't as destabilizing as killing an emperor. Given Zhongxian's standing as a master teacher, the other party would probably just overlook the matter. However, from the looks of it, he seemed to have been underestimating the severity of the matter. It's said that the head of the Master Teacher Pavilion, Luo Qianhong, is indebted to the royal family, and is a close friend of Ding Mu as well. As such, he intends to stand out to mediate the matter. Mo Yu revealed the news that she had just heard. The other party had intentionally put word out, so it wasn't difficult for Mo Yu to hear of it. HMPH. Zhongxian's eyes narrowed and dense killing intent poured out of him. As long as he hands over Ding Mu, I'll allow him to mediate whatever he likes. Mediate? If he were to accept it, then what about Lu Chong? You must be dreaming. Zhongxian, there's more news. Seeing the other party's expression, Mo Yu knew that he was determined to kill Ding Mu. A hint of worry flashed across her eyes. Zhongxian turned around to look at Mo Yu. The Xianyuan Kingdom's emperor, Ding Chong, has announced that he will pass down the throne to Ding Mu. Mo Yu said, "Pass down the throne." Zhongxian's forehead furrowed. If Ding Mu remained as a crown prince, even though killing him might bring some trouble, it wasn't beyond his means to resolve it. However, once he inherits the throne and becomes the emperor, killing him would rattle the foundation of the kingdom. The other conferred kingdoms might strike at this good opportunity. If so, there would be war, and the population would suffer. Given such, the Master-Teacher Pavilion would surely step in to stop Zhongxian. Seems like he's well prepared. As long as Ding Mu was successfully inaugurated as the new emperor, it would be difficult for Zhongxian to strike. It seemed like that fellow was truly frightened by the sight of Liang Qingming being crushed by the Book of Heaven's path. However, so what if he became the emperor? So what if the Master-Teacher Pavilion was going to stop him? Since the other party injured Lu Chong, he should be ready to face his wrath. If the kingdom tries to stop him, he will eradicate the kingdom. If the Master-Teacher Pavilion tries to stop him, he will eradicate the Master-Teacher Pavilion. At most, he would just have to find some way to form more golden pages. Even if he had to become everyone's enemies, he was determined to avenge his student. Coming to a decision, Zhongxian asked, "When is his inauguration ceremony?" The inauguration of an emperor was not a minor affair. The royal family, nobles, envoys from the surrounding conferred kingdoms. There were many people to be invited. Given the huge amount of preparatory work required, it should take some time. It had only been 7 days since that fellow's escape. Even if the announcement of him inaugurating as the emperor was made as soon as he returned, there should still be some time before the inauguration ceremony. It is today. Mo Yu smiled bitterly. As the princess of a country, as well as a potential emperor candidate groomed by Mo Qianxue, she was well aware of the various formalities required for an inauguration ceremony. The other party should have taken 2 days at minimum to travel from Qianwu Kingdom back to Xianyuan Kingdom. In other words, in just 5 days, the other party managed to complete all of the formalities. They sure were efficient. Before the inauguration was held, Ding Mu would continue to hide in the Master-Teacher Pavilion. And when he's finally inaugurated as the new emperor, it will become even harder to kill him. Even Mo Yu couldn't have expected that Zhongxian would force the crown prince of a conferred kingdom up the wall. Today. Flinging his sleeves, Zhongxian stood up and walked out. What are you going to do? It can't be that you intend to barge into the inauguration ceremony. Mo Yu's face paled. Indeed. Zhongxian nodded. But your current strength. Didn't you say that you'll only head over after reaching Zhizuan Realm Pinnacle? You're being too reckless like that. Mo Yu hurriedly persuaded. Zhizuan Realm Pinnacle. Without turning back, Zhongxian's aura suddenly burst out. In an instant, it was like a flood dragon was rising to the heavens, or a tiger stepping out of the forest, leaving one feeling helpless and insignificant. I've already reached it. Chapter 432, Wreaking Havoc in Xianyuan Kingdom, going over without reaching Zhizuan Realm Pinnacle is courting death. Mo Yu anxiously shouted. However, halfway through her words, she finally came to a realization and her lips quivered. What did you say? You've already reached it. 4 days ago, when this fellow went into seclusion, he was only at Xianxia Realm Pinnacle. Yet, he was saying that he had already reached Zhizuan Realm Pinnacle? That is Zhizuan Realm. Countless people have been stuck at its gates, unable to surpass the bottleneck their entire lives. Yet, in 4 short days. Do you have to be so exaggerated? What in the world did you eat to become so scary? Overwhelmed with shock, Mo Yu hurriedly took a closer look. Feeling the powerful aura the other party was exuding, she trembled. Even though she had finally reached Xianxia Realm, before him, she couldn't help but feel as helpless as an ant before a wave. You've really reached Zhizuan Realm Pinnacle. Mo Yu was stunned. What kind of monster was this? Just a few days ago, when the other party told her that he wanted to exact vengeance, she told him that he had to reach Xizuan Realm Pinnacle to stand a chance. In truth, she had hoped that he would back down after being told the difficulty of the matter. In this way, the other party would give up on these dangerous thoughts and focus on the Master-Teacher tournament instead. Yet, the other party simply made breakthroughs as though they were nothing. In just a few short days, he rose from Xianxia Realm Pinnacle to Xizuan Realm Pinnacle. It was as if those so-called cultivation bottlenecks were a concept non-existent to him. Could he still be considered as a human? If she were to say that he would at least require the strength of a half-transcension, would he rise to that level as well? She had always been proud of her talent, but why did she seem no different from a trash before this person? Even the incredible genius Mo Hongyi, compared to him, was nothing at all. It was no wonder why Zhao Yue and the others thought nothing of it when Xianxia said that he was going to aim for Xizuan Realm Pinnacle. She'd only realized at this moment that the others weren't just fawning over Xianxia, it was the absolute truth, and perhaps, they might even be underestimating him. Wait a moment, I'll go along with you. Multiple emotions flashed across Mo Yu's face, and by the time she regained her composure, that fellow was already far away. She hurriedly rushed over to catch up. You're still far too weak. It'll be better for you to stay here with Zhao Yue and the others. Xianxia stopped and waved her away. Even though Mo Yu had improved swiftly during this period of time, breaking through the Xianxia realm barrier, her strength was still far from enough to match up to those experts in Xianxia Kingdom. Bloodshed couldn't be avoided in this confrontation. Xianxia was confident of holding his ground, but it would be difficult for him to protect others along with him. I am a master teacher of the Master Teacher Pavilion. On top of that, I am a princess of Qianwu Kingdom as well. As long as I don't make a move, they won't do anything to me. Mo Yu hurriedly said. As she spent more time with the young man before her, she gradually found it harder and harder to part with him. For some reason, knowing that he was headed for danger, she wanted to follow him as well so that she could lend her assistance if something were to really happen. All right then. Later on, just remain on the back of the steel fang howling firmament beast. If there's any sign of danger, leave straight away. Seeing the worry on the other party's face, Xianxia hesitated for a moment before eventually nodding his head. He felt that it was his responsibility to exact vengeance for Lu Chong given that he was his teacher, but this had nothing to do with Mo Yu at all. He didn't want his own affairs to result in any harm to the other party. All right. Knowing that this was the other party's bottom line, Mo Yu agreed in gratitude. Reaching the courtyard, they climbed onto the steel fang howling firmament beast, and with a roar, the latter soared into the skies. After consuming the spirit beast blood essence and driving the spiritual energy using the method Xianxia gave him, this fellow made a breakthrough once more, reaching Xizuan Realm Intermediate Stage. At its current strength, it was on par with Ding Mu's gold-scaled lightning beast. Given the short proximity between Beast Hall and the capital, it didn't take long for them to arrive at their destination. Today is Crown Prince Ding Mu's inauguration ceremony. With such a genius becoming our emperor, it seems like we can finally hold our head high before other conferred kingdoms. Indeed. Despite only being 32 this year, he is already a 3-star formation master and a Xizuan Realm advanced stage expert. Throughout the entire history of Xianxia Kingdom, there have only been a handful of people who managed to reach Xizuan Realm before 30. Given his talents, he will surely be able to reach Xizuan Realm Pinnacle in less than 10 years. With sufficient luck, he might even be able to reach half-transcension in his lifetime. Crown Prince Ding Mu has always been my idol, as well as my goal. I heard that today's inauguration ceremony will be held at the Heaven's Altar. I must go over to have a look. Wait for me, I want to go as well. Walking along the wide streets of Xianxia Royal City, such discussions could be heard all around. Before Crown Prince Ding Mu's inauguration had even started, everyone was already thrilled. He sure knows how to make his move. Xianxia's complexion darkened further. Perhaps, the other party couldn't stand the idea of a threat looming the shadows. Thus, he decided to make a huge fuss of this celebration to bait him out. Without a doubt, an impeccable trap must have already been set up at the Heaven's Altar, just waiting for him to walk into it. If Xianxia were to really make a move, the other party would surely mobilize the entire army of the kingdom to crush him. However, so what if he had set up an impeccable trap? Since the other party dared to lay his hands on his student, then he should be prepared for the most brutal vengeance. With a grim expression, Xianxia stepped onto the back of the howling firmament beast and flew toward the heavens altar. Xianyuan Kingdom, Green Leaf Pavilion. This was the information hub of Xianyuan Kingdom. There were countless information dealers and clients walking in and out of here daily. It was even more bustling than some of the massive markets in the city. In here, one could buy all kinds of information, as well as sell exclusive news. The Green Leaf Pavilion would compile all of this news based on their value and create a ranking on them. The rumors that the scrolls of the green leaves resound across the capital didn't come from thin air. In the past, Hall Master Feng had mentioned the ranking of items that savage beasts were fond of. Even though it was an unofficial ranking made by beast tamers, it had the shadows of the Green Leaf Pavilion in it. If not for this massive information network pulling its connections, such private news wouldn't have spread so far. Not only so, it had also created a ranking of the experts in the kingdom in the form of the Green Leaf Board and Young Leaf Board. Only the most powerful experts in the kingdom were on the Green Leaf Board. Even the head of the Master Teacher Pavilion, Half-Transcension Pavilion Master Luo Qianhong, was only in third place on the Green Leaf Board. As for the Young Leaf Board, recorded on it were the most powerful young geniuses. And of the Young Leaf Board, Crown Prince Ding Mu was listed on the very top. Pavilion Head. Why is the Crown Prince listed on the top of the board? His strength is only at Zhizuan Realm Advanced Stage, while the second-placed Ling Luoye was clearly already at Zhizuan Realm Pinnacle. In one of the executive room in the Green Leaf Pavilion, two figures were seated face to face. The one speaking was a grey-robed elder. He was staring at the ranking board on the table in incomprehension. Elder Liao Qingxuan. Opposite to him was a white-robed elder. He had eyebrows that were slightly arched upward, snowy hair, and eyes that were sharp as though lightning. With a single look, one could tell that he was an extraordinarily intelligent person. Pavilion Head Dai Feng. The Young Leaf Board ranks the young geniuses based on their strength. Even though Ling Luoye's cultivation was above that of the Crown Prince, if a battle were to break out between the two of them, it was more likely that the Crown Prince would emerge victorious. Pavilion Head Dai Feng chuckled. Oh! Elder Liao Qingxuan was clearly doubtful of the latter's words. You don't believe me? I'll explain it to you then. Seeing the doubt in the other party's eyes, Pavilion Head Dai Feng calmly picked up the teacup on the table, scraped the floating tea leaves on top and said, Ling Luoye is indeed talented to have reached Zhizuan Realm Pinnacle at 34. However, if a person's cultivation rises too quickly, all kinds of problems will occur. Firstly, his cultivation technique, Profound Ripple Art, is a water element cultivation technique. As such, it lacks offensive power. On top of that, his strongest battle technique, Frigid Water Dance, was also relatively lacking in power. As such, he could only be considered as average among those of the same cultivation realm. On the other hand, Crown Prince Ding Mu. Firstly, I believe you should have heard of the royal family hunting down a wounded spirit beast. Back then, they procured quite a substantial amount of spirit beast blood essence. The royal family possesses an extremely powerful physical body cultivation technique known as Spirit Blood Body Nourishment Formula. Anybody that was tempered by it would become incredibly resilient and powerful. Other than that, the cultivation technique he cultivates, Might of the Celestial Bear, grants him extraordinary strength. On top of that, he also learned the Heaven-Shattering Fist, which was known for its aggressiveness. Putting aside how none of those in the same cultivation realm would be able to match him, it wouldn't be hard to face those of higher cultivation realm than him as well. But of course, most importantly of all, as a 3-star formation master, he had at least 7 to 8 grade 3 formation plates on him. If he were to throw all of them out, it would be difficult for even a transcendent mortal expert to kill him, needless to say, a Zhizuan Realm Pinnacle cultivator. Thus, without doubt, he was worthy of being the first place. At which, Pavilion Head Dai Feng turned to look at the other elder with a wide grin. How is it? Do you still think that Ling Luoye can defeat him? After a moment of contemplation, Elder Liao Qingxuan shook his head. Impossible. Given the Crown Prince Ding Mu's powerful cultivation technique, extraordinary talents, and numerous aces, even despite his cultivation realm being only that of Xizuan realm advanced stage. Probably not even Xizuan realm pinnacle experts would be willing to offend him. It's due to all of this that he was ranked at first place of the Young Leaf Board. He's deserving of his position on the Young Leaf Board. Putting aside Ling Luoya for the moment, there hasn't been anyone who could match him in the past 500 years, and I believe there won't be anyone like him in the next 500 years either. Pavilion head Dai Feng chuckled. Indeed. Crown Prince Ding Mu is truly a talented person. Elder Liao Qingxuan felt awed by the explanation and insight. It's about time for you to change your method of address. It's going to be Emperor Ding Mu from today onward. Pavilion head Dai Feng reprimanded with a smile. You're right, it's Emperor Ding Mu. No wonder everyone is thrilled about this inauguration. With such a genius leading Xianxia Kingdom, its national strength would only continue to grow further. Soon, among conferred kingdoms, no one would dare offend us. Recalling the sight outside, Liao Qingxuan commented. A nation being weak wasn't just a problem of its weak military, more importantly, it was related to the character and attitude of its leader. If its leader was a talented and headstrong person, the nation would surely grow strong. Indeed. He'll become a much better sovereign than old Emperor Ding Chong. At the very least, his reputation should strike fear in the surrounding kingdoms, and those ambitious kingdoms would be hesitant to make their move. Seems like Xianxia Kingdom is about to usher in a new era of unparalleled growth. Pavilion head Dai Feng was filled with anticipation for the future. Elder Liao Qingxuan nodded in agreement. Just as he was about to say something, the ground suddenly shook and a deafening sound resounded across the entire capital. Ding Mu, I, Zhongxian, am here. Get out here to face your death. Face your death. Someone has barged into the Heaven's Altar during the inauguration ceremony to kill Emperor Ding Mu. Pavilion head Dai Feng and Elder Liao Qingxuan were dumbstruck. Chapter 433. By Chen, the duo had just said that with Ding Mu's inauguration, no one would dare to wreak havoc in Xianxia Kingdom anymore. When they heard this stark provocation, they felt a stinging sensation on their cheeks, as though someone had just struck them. What was going on? They hurriedly stood up and looked out of the windows. The Green Leaf Pavilion was a tall infrastructure, and from the executive room, they could see the vast field around the Heaven's Altar. The field was filled with a massive crowd, and in the air, a young man stood on the head of a massive howling firmament beast. The young man was currently staring coldly down upon the inauguration ceremony below. From the looks of it, he isn't even 20 yet. However, given how deep his aura is, his cultivation has probably already reached Xizuan realm pinnacle. When did such an expert appear in the city? The mouths of the duo twitched. They had just said that Crown Prince Ding Mu's feat was unsurpassed in the past 500 years, and would remain to be so in the next 500, and at the next moment, this fellow appeared. Wasn't this too coincidental? Zhong Xian. If I recall correctly, a few days ago, a beast tamer going by this name won the beast taming competition. However, that person's cultivation should only be at Xianxia realm pinnacle. Why is his cultivation suddenly at Xizuan realm pinnacle? A beast tamer was bellowing for the inaugurating crown prince to face his death. What was going on? The two heads of the largest information network in Xianxia Kingdom stared at one another in frenzy. In the house on the back of a flying massive savage beast, a few people stood by the window. Standing at the very front was a white-robed young man. With his hands behind his back, he carried an ethereal aura. Jiyu Mu stepped forward and announced, "Gongzi, Xianxia Royal City is right ahead of us." Not too far away, a massive city came into sight. It extended for several hundred kilometers, and its thick city walls were connected to the meandering mountains. It resembled a sleeping behemoth. The layout of this city is indeed interesting. To think that it would be a formation. Opening his fan, the Gongzi chuckled. Those within might not realize anything, but from above, it was clear that the city that was connected with the mountains appeared to be aligned with some formation theories. There seemed to be a slight gathering of spiritual energy in the region. The Xianxia royal family is a clan of formation masters, and the generations of emperors had been skilled formation masters themselves. In this field, Crown Prince Ding Mu seemed to be an exceptional genius. Jiu Mu explained. Pooey, genius my head. Before Jiu Mu could finish his words, a disdainful voice sounded. Turning to take a look, they saw Sun Qiong with a contemptuous expression on his face. You disagree with my words. Knowing that there was a high chance that the other party was a butler of a 6-star master teacher, Jiu Mu dared not get angry. Rather, he gazed at the other party with a look of bewilderment. This Ding Mu, having offended the young master, probably won't live for long. In terms of talent, who could match up to the young master? Sun Qiong's lips curled up in pride. Sun Qiong had witnessed how Ding Mu's subordinates severely wounded Lu Chong, and he knew that the other party's actions had piqued the young master's killing intent. While the young master was a headstrong person, he had the capability to match it. Even without the assistance of the old master, the young master's wrath wasn't something that the mere Xianxia kingdom could withstand. In Sun Qiong's eyes, there was no genius in the world who could even compare to the pinky of the young master. Genius? Stop bringing shame to the word. Is this senior uncle very talented? Jiu Mu asked. Of course. The young master isn't 20 yet, but is already a 3-star painter, 2-star master teacher, 2-star beast tamer, and on top of that, he was recruited as an elder of Myriad Kingdom Alliance Physician Guild. Do you think that a fellow like Ding Mu could match up to the young master's talents? Sun Qiong was filled with pride. The reticent Gongzi standing by the window suddenly turned around and asked, Isn't your young master from Qianwu Kingdom? How did he become an elder of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance? How could a small figure from Qianwu Kingdom become an elder of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance Physician Guild? Who do you think the young master is? He solved all of the problems written on the Physician Guild's Wall of Dilemma in a single taking. Among those questions, there are even problems that the physicians from the Myriad Kingdom Alliance Physician Guild are unable to solve. As such, in awe of the young master's capability, they decided to recruit him as an elder. Sun Qiong harumphed. He liked speaking of the young master's accomplishments. He was just about to brag more about the various feats the young master had done when the calm Gongzi's face paled and his body trembled. Isn't your young master called Xianxia? If I recall correctly, isn't the one who solved the questions on the Wall of Dilemma called Liu Cheng? Oh, Liu Cheng is an alias that the young master used during the 2-star master teacher examination. Sun Qiong said. Xianxia is Liu Cheng? Your young master? Gongzi and Jin Songhai glanced at one another in shock. Indeed. Sun Qiong nodded. Since he's a physician, why is he involved with the matters of poison masters as well? These two occupations are contradictory to one another. A moment later, Gongzi asked once more. A master teacher could take on many occupations at once. Initially, upon hearing that Xianxia was a skilled poison master, as well as Jiu Mu's senior granduncle, they thought that Xianxia would be a skilled poison master as well. But if that was the case, how could the other party be a skilled physician too? The young master is a talented individual. What is bizarre about him mastering 2 occupations at once? The responsibility of a physician is to bring salvation to the world, and only those with benevolence in their hearts are suited for the occupation. On the other hand, the poison masters concoct poison for malicious means, and those who take on this occupation tend to be callous. Given how the 2 occupations are at the opposite end of the spectrum, could it be that your young master has dissociative identity disorder? Gongzi was still baffled by this matter. Given how physicians and poison masters stood at the opposite ends of the spectrum, he couldn't understand how one could take on these 2 occupations simultaneously. What's so bizarre about that? Our young master is normally a gentle person, and he rarely argues with others. Even though he's capable of utilizing poison, unlike other poison masters, he doesn't kill everyone that he gets into a dispute with. On the contrary, he tends to resolve problems through reason and seeks to win over others via morals. Upon learning of the other party's doubts, Sun Qiong glanced at the other party contemptuously. Expert? If you're truly an expert, how could you not know this? How embarrassing. Just as Sun Qiong was about to continue introducing the various strengths of Xianxia, a deafening voice suddenly sounded from the city. Ding Mu, I, Xianxia, am here. Get out here to face your death. Xianxia. Upon hearing these words, the group on the back of the savage beast fell silent. Everyone's gazes hurriedly turned to Sun Qiong. This is the man that you said is gentle, rarely argues with others, and uses morals to win others over? It seemed like the other party had already slaughtered his way to the other party's doorstep. What is he up to? Wei Yuqing was stunned. He was just gone for a few days. Why was beast tamer Zhong wreaking havoc in the royal palace, even threatening to kill the crown prince? Grand Elder Wei, let's go over to take a look. Of the crowd, only Sun Qiong understood the abrupt situation. Knowing that there was no time to be wasted, he hurriedly instructed. It seemed like the young master couldn't wait any longer, so he decided to make his move today. All right. Knowing how urgent the matter was, Wei Yuqing tapped his feet and the savage beast dashed straight toward the direction of the voice. Standing at the very center of the heaven's altar, Ding Mu was just about to undergo the final rituals to be officially inaugurated as the emperor when he heard those words. For a moment, he was dumbstruck. He thought about the various forms that the other party may exact vengeance on him: assassination, life and death duel, poisoning. But one thing he never expected was for the other party to do it so openly. Before the innumerable civilians, master teachers, officials, and nobles of the Xianxia kingdom, the other party fearlessly rushed here and declared brazenly that he would kill him. Was this fellow insane? This was Xianxia kingdom, his home ground. Putting aside the troops, there were many formations laid out all over as well. To dash right here fearlessly, was the other party really a genius two-star master teacher? This is the master teacher who wishes to kill you. A middle-aged man walked over. The head of the master teacher pavilion, Luo Qianhong. In the past few days, Ding Mu had been staying in the master teacher pavilion. He had told him about the recent events, and it seemed that a master teacher desired for his death. Initially, he thought that Ding Mu was just overthinking it, but to think that the other party really came knocking. UN. Ding Mu nodded. Clasping his fist, he said, "It's a misunderstanding. I hope that Brother Luo can mediate the situation for me. The other party is just a mere two-star master teacher. He won't dare to defy my words." Luo Qianhong waved his hands. There was strict ranking hierarchy to master teachers. Two-star master teachers possessed incredible standing in the kingdom, but to a three-star intermediate master teacher like him, the other party's standing didn't mean much. In fact, the other party had to pay respect to him in the position of a student. Otherwise, he could report the matter to the master teacher pavilion and have the other party's master teacher license revoked. I'll thank you in advance then. Seeing that the head of the master teacher pavilion was going to stand up for him, Ding Mu heaved a sigh of relief. Bai Chen, go over and issue a stern warning to that young man. Don't allow him to delay His Highness's inauguration ceremony. If he doesn't know what's good for him, I permit the use of violence to deal with him. Luo Qianhong instructed one of his subordinates. Yes. A master teacher dressed in a long robe walked out of the crowd. This master teacher seemed to be in his 40s, and his eyes were gleaming with spirit. On the emblem pinned on his chest, there were 3 bright stars. He was a 3-star primary master teacher. His cultivation was also at Zhizuan realm pinnacle. Upon receiving the orders, Master Teacher Bai Chen turned to look at Xianxia above and frowned. Today is Crown Prince Ding Mu's inauguration ceremony, so I ask of you not to cause trouble and leave immediately. If so, we will not pursue this matter. Otherwise, don't blame me for getting nasty. I'll leave after killing Ding Mu. Couldn't be bothered to waste his words, Zhong Xian leaped down the back of the howling firmament beast. Even though he didn't possess any technique capable of breaking his fall, given his Zhizuan realm cultivation and powerful physical body, an altitude of a dozen meters didn't mean much to him. Who? Landing on the stairs of the heaven's altar, the ground below cracked. After which, without any hesitation, he began walking up. I am 3-star Master Teacher Bai Chen. As a Master Teacher, you should be well aware of the rules. A lower-ranked Master Teacher has to unconditionally obey the commands of higher-ranked Master Teacher. It can't be that you are intending to defy my words. Upon seeing the young man disregarding him, Bai Chen's complexion turned awful. He immediately stepped forward to block Zhong Xian's path. He heard the conversation between the pavilion master and Ding Mu, and he knew that the other party was a master teacher as well. A mere 2-star primary master teacher should bow respectfully upon seeing a 3-star primary master teacher like him. Yet, to dare to disregard him altogether, how brazen! Scram! Seeing the men from Xianxia Kingdom Master Teacher Pavilion blocking his path, Xianxia bellowed coldly. You're courting death. He thought that after revealing his identity, the other party would retreat out of fear. Yet, the other party dared to ask him to scram. The arrogance of the other party caused Bai Chen's face to turn livid, and he nearly erupted from rage. Chapter 434. Bai Chen's breakdown. Ever since clearing the 3-star Master Teacher examination 7 years ago and becoming an elder of the Xianxia Kingdom Master Teacher Pavilion, Bai Chen had been well respected no matter where he went. Even the Xianxia Kingdom royal family had to welcome him with the grandest of formalities. If a 2-star master teacher were to show the slightest disrespect to him, he would immediately bellow at the other party, and the other party wouldn't even breathe loudly out of fear. Yet, this fellow actually told him to scram. Bai Chen's eyes narrowed. Is there something wrong with your head? How dare you ask me to scram? Unforgivable. Boom. His aura abruptly burst out. Master teachers, due to their state of insight and their deep understanding of cultivation techniques and battle techniques, tended to be the strongest among all of the other occupations. Even among Zhizuan realm pinnacle cultivators, Bai Chen definitely ranked among the top. Even though his name wasn't listed in the green leaf board, he was, without a doubt, one of the top figures within this kingdom. Yet, such an expert was insulted by a mere 2-star master teacher. How could he tolerate such humiliation? With a livid expression, the might of a Zhizuan realm pinnacle came gushing out as though a massive torrent. Catcher! Catcher! Unable to take the pressure, cracks appeared on the stairs beneath his feet. You were scared into hiding in the Master Teacher Pavilion because of this fellow. Taking this sight in, Luo Qianhong shook his head. He thought that the Master Teacher who struck so much fear in the Crown Prince, who was ranked first in the Young Leaf Board, that he was sent into hiding would be an incredible fellow, but from the looks of it, the other party seemed to be a fool. Putting aside how he walked in so openly to wreak havoc on such a major affair, he even dared to spout such rude words to a 3-star master teacher. Even the word fool was insufficient to describe him. This wasn't Qianwu Kingdom, where a 2-star master teacher could reign mighty. Here, even a 3-star primary master teacher would have to lie low. Given the innumerable rules of the Master Teacher Pavilion, just by picking a few, one could condemn a lower-ranked master teacher to the pits of hell. I must be blind as well. Ding Mu uttered awkwardly. Back then, Zhong Xian had used a mystical treasure to crush Liang Qingming and Lin Long, and the sight of it was a huge shock to him. That was why he escaped immediately then. After which, fearing that the other party would mobilize the help of his teacher, the unfathomable Xianxia, he decisively chose to go into hiding. Yet, contrary to his expectations, the other party came alone. If Xianxia was here, Ding Mu might still be frightened. But a 2-star master teacher, honestly speaking, meant nothing to him at all. It wasn't because master teachers meant nothing at all. Rather, even though a 2-star master teacher was a huge asset to a Tier 1 kingdom, to a conferred kingdom, it just wasn't that important. To charge here instead of resolving the issue at the Master Teacher Pavilion, that's a lack of rationality. On top of that, despite being a junior, he dares to talk back to a 3-star master teacher. That's a lack of respect. Furthermore, despite being the civilian of a vassal state, he dares disregards the emperor. That's a lack of patriotism. Lack of rationality, respect, and patriotism. Just with these three, we can revoke his master teacher license. Luo Qianhong shook his head as the disdain in his eyes deepened. Even so, given how he dared to provoke Bai Shi, there's probably no need to revoke his license anymore. Nodding his head, Ding Mu's lips slowly curled up. Of course. Putting his hands behind his back, Luo Qianhong exuded an authoritative disposition as he said, not only do we need to teach him a good lesson, it's also about time to reorganize the master teacher pavilions of those vassal Tier 1 kingdoms. Otherwise, if even trash like him can become a master teacher, how can the prestige of master teachers be upheld? You're right. It's about time for some reorganization. Nodding his head, Ding Mu was just about to speak when his eyes lit up. Look, Bai Shi is making a move. Not too far away, Bai Chen spread open his fingers, and leaving a huge gale of wind behind him, he dashed forward to claw at Xianxia. An expert pulls his weight as soon as he makes a move. With the strength of a Zhizuan realm pinnacle, a towering pressure came crashing down on Xianxia. Even before his blow could reach, the stairs beneath him were already cracking from the immense shock wave. Bai Chen's great reversal hands is a phantom battle technique, and it possesses immense strength. Back then, when he was still at Zhizuan realm advanced stage, he managed to subdue the Zhizuan realm pinnacle Zhu Qian with a single palm. This fellow is probably in for misfortune. Luo Qianhong commented. The intruding master teacher had a frightening aura shrouding around him, and he seemed to possess the strength of a Zhizuan realm pinnacle. However, through his acute discerning ability as a 3-star intermediate master teacher, Luo Qianhong could tell that the other party was only at Zhizuan realm primary stage. Even if he utilized some physical body cultivation technique to boost his physical strength, what about it? In the end, a strong physical body amounts to mere brute strength. One couldn't execute the full might of battle techniques through mere brute strength. When faced with an expert, the other party would surely crumble quickly. Just as the duo was giving their comments on the battle, Bai Chen's palm was already right before Xianxia. HMPH. Not expecting that a master teacher would attack him straight without even trying to understand the situation, Xianxia's complexion darkened. Harumphing coldly, lines of insight surfaced in his eyes. In that instant, it was as though the other party's movements had slowed. The gaps and flaws in his movements suddenly seemed to magnify, becoming clear to Xianxia's eyes. Thus, Xianxia slightly tilted his body to the side before sending a kick right at the other party's ankle. What? Bai Chen had wanted to cripple this arrogant 2-star master teacher to serve as a warning to the rest against disrespecting him, but upon seeing the other party's kick, his face paled. His great reversal hands was powerful, and it would be difficult for even those of the same cultivation realm to withstand his blow. However, no matter how powerful it was, there were still flaws to it. Xianxia's kick was aimed right at the center of where his zhengqi was gathered. Once struck, no matter how weak the other party's kick was, he would immediately suffer a rebound and sustain severe internal injuries. Having the flaw of his ultimate technique seen through in an instant, Bai Chen felt so stifled that blood was threatening to spurt from his mouth. At this moment, he could no longer be bothered with offense anymore. After all, once the other party's kick lands, not only would his attack be rendered ineffective, he would also be crippled. Thus, he hurriedly exerted all of his force on his feet and leaped backward. Even so, forcefully retracting his strength in the midst of an attack and leaping backward had caused the zhengqi flowing through his body to go into chaos. A sweet sensation welled in his throat and a mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth. Damn it! Even before crossing blows with the other party, Bai Chen was already injured. He couldn't help but feel frenzied. As a master teacher, his discernment and knowledge far exceeded that of ordinary cultivators. When had he suffered such a humiliation? Damn you! Bellowing furiously, Bai Chen shot out 2 fists simultaneously. His fists felt as fleeting as the wind, but undeniably, if it were to land on one would be crippled if not dead. Phantom battle technique. Consecutive breezy fist. In terms of burst strength, this technique was not a match for the great reversal hands. However, the execution of this technique was much faster, and its reach was significantly greater as well. There weren't many obvious flaws to it, so the other party shouldn't be able to do the same as he did before. With a savage expression, Bai Chen howled furiously. However, just as before his fists could reach the young man before him, the other party's foot appeared in his sight once more. Upon seeing the area that the kick was aimed at, Bai Chen coughed another mouthful of blood again. He was already on the verge of tears by now. Helpless, he could only hurriedly retract his offense. The consecutive breezy fist was a well-known battle technique in the Master Teacher Pavilion, and it was said to be the creation of a 4-star Master Teacher. Its swift movement left very few flaws for one's opponent to exploit, and even Pavilion Master Luo Qianhong would have to take on this battle technique squarely. Yet, this fellow sent a leg straight at the opening of the battle technique without any hesitation. If the kick were to really land on him, even if he survived this blow, he would surely be lying on the bed for months. 2 consecutive kicks to land on the floor of his battle techniques. Was this fellow's eye for discernment really that incredible, or was it just a coincidence? I don't believe it. Howling furiously yet again, he flicked his wrist and a long saber appeared in his hands. He slashed the saber art furiously, and in the blink of an eye, after images appeared. Phantom battle technique, saber of sorrowful departure. The saber of sorrowful departure consisted of 64 moves, and the movements connected with one another, allowing one to launch a continued offense against one's enemy to push the other party into a corner. Unless one possessed an even more powerful weapon and battle technique, it would be impossible to withstand this swift saber art. Hoo. With the saber flying all around the place, Bai Chen didn't think that the other party would be able to find the weakness in this move. However, just as this thought appeared in his mind, the other party's foot appeared in a momentary gap in the movements of the saber art yet again, headed straight for his Ming men. Pu. Bai Chen hurriedly retracted his saber and backed away. Once again, the sudden withdrawal of force caused his face to redden and fresh blood spurted out of his mouth. 3 consecutive phantom battle techniques consisting of palm, fist, and saber, and Bai Chen only ended up injuring himself. He was about to go insane. Wasn't this fellow only a 2-star master teacher? To see through the flaws in the battle techniques of a Zhizuan realm pinnacle expert with a single look. When did 2-star master teachers become so formidable? If even 2-star master teachers were that formidable, then what did he, a 3-star master teacher, count as? Bai Chen felt more and more stifled as he fought on, and he was on the verge of going insane. The crowd watching the commotion by the sides stared at one another frenziedly. The two were both Zhizuan realm experts, and on top of that, they were both master teachers. As such, their movements were extremely fast. On top of that, with their eye of discernment, more often than not, they could tell the other party's attacking trajectory and deduce the outcome before the attack even lands, and through that, determine their next movement. In other words, the Bai Shi who had just furiously declared that he would teach his foreigner a lesson, in the eyes of the crowd, leaped backward as soon as the other party lifted his legs on the 3 occasions, and on top of that, he even spurted a mouthful of blood each time. The heck? Do you think that you're a clown in the circus? Why does it feel that Bai Shi is even more unreliable than the person who came to wreak Crown Prince Ding Mu's inauguration ceremony? Is Bai Shi dancing? It does look like it. Some spectators amidst the crowd commented. As soon as the young man raised his leg, Bai Shi would jump backward. It was as though a human was toying with his own dog, and at the same time, it resembled a dancing couple as well. You advance while I retreat, and an occasional spurting of blood for a touch of intimacy. Didn't you furiously declare that you would kill the other party? To be jumping around the area. Are you sure you aren't flirting with the other party instead? No one does it the way you do. Pu. Bai Chen was already severely injured before, but after hearing those words and seeing the bizarre gazes in the crowd's eyes, he nearly failed to catch his breath and fainted on the spot. Dancing. Dance your head. You're the one who is dancing, your whole family is dancing. It only appears that way due to my battle techniques being completely suppressed by the other party's movements. The more he thought about it, the more furious Bai Chen became. As a 3-star master teacher, a prestigious and respected figure in Xianxia Kingdom, even if he were to win against the other party now, he would surely become a laughingstock. Today, it'll be either you die or I die. Roaring furiously, he whipped the saber around once more. His saber gleamed, as though creating a spherical light force field around him. With such a swift saber art, even if a pail of water were to be splashed over one would be able to completely deflect it. Just as he thought that the other party would be completely helpless before this technique, he lowered his head, only to see a foot leisurely being stretched over toward him. Just as the several times before, it shot straight through the gaps in the saber art. The heck? What the heck is this? How in the world can you know the flaws of every single battle technique I display? Did you study all of my battle techniques before coming? Is there a point to this? Can't we have a hot-blooded and valiant fight? To strike so mercilessly at my flaws, don't you know what love and concern for one's elders is? Bai Chen cried. Chapter 435, The night rain drenches every traveling downstream. No, that's not it. This fellow seems rather skilled, Luo Qianhong said with a grim expression. The inexperienced spectates the commotion while the veteran analyzes the technicalities. Bai Chen's jumping around and occasional spurting of blood may look ridiculous in the eyes of others, but Luo Qianhong was still able to discern something about the situation. Clearly, the young man's kick had posed a huge threat to his old friend, impelling him to back away even despite the threat of a rebound occurring. In other words, that fellow had seen through the flaws of Bai Chen's movements and struck directly at its openings. That was why he was able to neutralize his attacks so easily, putting Bai Chen in such a difficult position. It can't be that. He knew that Bai Shi would make a move, so he decided to study his battle techniques and cultivation techniques in advance. Ding Mu could also roughly tell what was happening, so he couldn't help but comment in astonishment. Study in advance? That's impossible. There is no cultivator who would reveal all of his cultivation techniques and battle techniques to others, even to his closest kin in case his enemies found out about it through certain means. Luo Qianhong shook his head. I know of Bai Chen's great reversal hands, but he has never utilized the consecutive breezy fists and saber of sorrowful departure before anyone, so even I am unaware of it. How could a foreigner find out about such confidential secrets beforehand? That. Ding Mu's face paled. He suddenly recalled the various legends of that young master teacher. Back then, he didn't think much of it. He attributed it all to the other party having a good teacher. However, from the looks of it, he was vastly underestimating the other party. Most probably, he might have cultivated or studied these battle techniques before, thus granting him some knowledge of its flaws. Luo Qianhong deduced. Then, he turned to look at the Crown Prince and said, Are you hiding something from me? Is that person really just an ordinary 2-star primary master teacher? The other party had only told him that he offended a master teacher of a Tier 1 kingdom. Since the other party was just a 2-star master teacher of a vassal kingdom, he didn't think much of it, so he didn't investigate the matter. To think that this negligence would result in such a huge problem. When that fellow bellowed on top of the savage beast, Luo Qianhong thought that the other party was an ignorant, reckless fellow. Even if he was talented, given his young age, he should not pose a threat at all. However, after seeing all that had happened, he couldn't say the same about it now. An ordinary 2-star master teacher seeing through the flaws in the battle techniques of a 3-star master teacher in an instant? Without a doubt, Ding Mu must have misled him. Under the other party's interrogation, Ding Mu clenched his fists tightly and said, I don't know much about him either, just that, it has only been 10 days since he became a 2-star master teacher. 10 days. Luo Qianhong frowned. Logically speaking, a 2-star master teacher who had just passed the examination shouldn't be so formidable. Peng. Luo Qianhong was baffled. However, before he could make sense of the situation, the sound of a foot sinking into flesh sounded. He hurriedly turned around, only to see Bai Chen, unable to dodge any longer, being kicked in the face and flying 40 to 50 meters back. His head smashed into the wall of a building, and the immense force caused him to pass out. After being forced to withdraw his battle techniques halfway through executing them, he had already suffered significant damage via the rebound of his strength. Unable to withstand this humiliation, the thought of dying with the other party flashed through his head and he decided to go all out. Yet, it ended up being a one-sided event. Bai Shi was sent flying with a single kick. How is that young lad so strong? Didn't they say that the Crown Prince is the greatest genius in Xianxia Kingdom? The other party defeated Bai Shi despite being under 20. Doesn't this mean that he's even more talented? Not one person in the crowd was able to make sense of the dancing previously, and now, Bai Chen had been kicked unconscious. No matter how foolish they were, it couldn't be more apparent now that the other party's strength surpassed even that of the 3-star primary Bai Shi. The crowd stared at one another blankly. Hualala. While everyone was overwhelmed with shock, the young man continued walking up the stairs, closing the distance to the Crown Prince. Upon seeing this sight, the soldiers in the surroundings immediately advanced forward to protect their liege. Wait a moment. Seeing that Ding Mu intended to have his guards make a move, Luo Qianhong shook his hands to wave them away. Pavilion Master Luo. Thinking that the other party was going to betray him, Dingmu looked at him worriedly. I'll help you reconcile with him. It'll be best to end this matter peacefully. Luo Qianhong was angry that Dingmu didn't tell him the truth, but he was indebted to the Shenyuan royal family and this was a debt he had to repay. Besides, it was already too late to back out of it. Thus, he could only face it straight on. I'll be depending on Pavilion Master Luo then. Dingmu nodded. Yuan, continue on with your ceremony and make haste. As long as you become the emperor and the royal seal is in your hands, things will become easier to settle. I'll also be in a better position to speak up for you. Luo Qianhong said. Yes. Dingmu nodded as he hurriedly walked toward the throne in the center. Upon seeing him being bestowed the crown and undergoing the final rites, Luo Qianhong heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he turned around to face Zhongxian. Looking at the guards by the side who already had their weapon drawn, he commanded, "Clear away." Pavilion Master Luo. Knowing the other party's identity, the soldiers hurriedly opened up a pathway and bowed. You must be Zhongxian, Xianxia. I am the head of the Shenyuan Kingdom Master Teacher Pavilion, Luo Qianhong. Walking forward, Luo Qianhong clasped his fist. Even though I am not aware of the grudge between you and Dingmu, it's always better to make comrades than enemies. Since we're both master teachers, allow me to play the role of a mediator to resolve the conflict between the both of you. No matter what you request, I'll have Dingmu prepare it. The only thing I want is Dingmu's life. As soon as I get that, I'll leave. Zhongxian spoke impassively. What compensation could match the life of his student? Not only is Dingmu the crown prince, he's also about to become the emperor of Shenyuan Kingdom. If he were to be killed, it'll surely cause chaos in the country. The population will suffer. There's no master-teacher pavilion that could watch idly as all of these unfold. If this matter blows up, you might even end up losing your identity as a master-teacher. Luo Qianhong frowned. Scram. While Luo Qianhong spoke, the ceremony was still going on. It was clear that he was trying to stall for time. Zhongxian's complexion immediately darkened. The only reason I am hesitating to make a move on you is due to your immense talent. Don't you try to overstep your boundaries. Luo Qianhong harumphed. I am already trying to spare your pride. So what if you are a genius? Do you think that I, as a 3-star intermediate master teacher and a half-transcension expert, would fear you? If you don't scram, I'll leave you in the same state as that fellow. Seeing that Luo Qianhong was still stalling for time, Zhongxian's eyebrows shot up. Without any hesitation, his figure immediately blurred. Who? He disappeared from the spot, and in the blink of an eye, he leaped several dozen meters forward, appearing right before the other party. Heaven's Path Movement Art. When Zhongxian was fighting with Bai Chen, he didn't utilize any of the Heaven's Path battle technique. It was just to add in the element of surprise when he was facing a stronger enemy. Otherwise, once his ultimate techniques were revealed, the enemy could take precautions against them. If so, the effectiveness of the techniques would be minimized. Reaching Zhizuan realm, the Heaven's Path Xianxia became purer and more concentrated. As such, the speed and distance of the Heaven's Path movement art had increased significantly. Even Luo Qianhong, as a half-transcension expert, was incapable of moving at such speed. Before he could even react, Zhongxian was already right before him. You! Luo Qianhong's eyes narrowed and he hurriedly tried to retreat. However, before he could even take a single step back, a fist slowly magnified right before him. Heaven's Path Fist Art. The speed of the fist was in no way slower than the movement art, and in fact, it might even have exceeded the latter. A sonic boom resounded deafeningly on top of the Heaven's altar. Knowing that it was impossible for him to dodge already, Luo Qianhong propelled the Xianxia in his body and sent a fist of his own to face the other party's blow. Boom! Both fists collided, and Luo Qianhong felt his palm turning numb. His face paled, and he had to take 8 steps backward consecutively before he managed to steady his figure. In order to ward off the rampaging might of the other party, his feet sank 3 inches into the ground. Even a layer of granite on the incomparably resilient ground of the Heaven's altar was reduced to dust under the powerful shock wave. What a powerful fist art! A sharp pain came striking Luo Qianhong's shaking arm. In that clash, he could tell that even though the other party possessed massive strength, he was still a way off from matching up to a half-transcension like him. What a truly fearsome fist art that was! It was aligned with the world, and to Luo Qianhong's shock, he realized that there were absolutely no flaws he could exploit. Under this abrupt encounter, even a 3-star intermediate master teacher like him ended up suffering a setback. Taking a deep breath, Luo Qianhong suppressed his chaotic breathing, and raising his palms, he charged ahead. The fact that the other party had forced him back had embarrassed him. He mustn't allow the other party to take the initiative once more. Boom! The Xianxia of a half-transcension expert gushed out, creating a river on the heavens altar. In an instant, it felt as though the air had turned viscous. Fighters cultivate their own bodies to bring out the full strength of their physical bodies and Xianxia. The cultivation of a mortal transcendent expert was very different from that. True mortal transcendent experts were capable of utilizing origin energy from their surroundings to display a battle prowess several folds of their own strength using the words from Zhong Xian's previous world. If fighters fought with their own fists and flesh, mortal transcendence would be equivalent to using robots and external equipment. There was no basis for comparison for the two. How could a bare-handed martial artist defeat tanks and cannons? At half-transcension, one wasn't able to fully utilize the strength of nature yet, but still, one was still able to unleash a might far exceeding that of the 40,000 ding limit of Zhizuan realm pinnacle experts. In fact, even Zhong Xian's 50,000 ding was insignificant compared to the other party. With the full might of a half-transcension expert unleashed, Luo Qianhong gained control of the surroundings. Then, harumphing softly, he dashed forward and struck Zhong Xian with his palm. Phantom Pinnacle Battle Technique. Whisking Sleeves. The warm breeze whisks willow tugging one's sleeves, the night rain drenches every traveling downstream. This gentle palm seemed to hold no weight to it, but having gathered an immense amount of the surrounding origin energy, it was capable of breaking through even steel and phantom equipment. A half-transcension expert coupled with a Phantom Pinnacle Battle Technique was a frightening force. Even an expert of the same level would find it hard to withstand the immense might. With this move, Luo Qianhong had taken out nearly all of his aces. Su! The palm flew straight toward the young man with frightening speed, threatening to land at any moment. However, not only did the other party not dodge or evade, he even dashed straight toward the palm. This is bad. The whisking sleeves was a very flexible battle technique, making it hard for someone to withstand its might. But even so, there was still one major flaw to its stream. And this fellow happened to be standing right at the location of the stream. To determine its flaws and find the location precisely in that short moment. How was that possible? In that instant, Luo Qianhong's shock was indescribable. Chapter 436, Expelling an Army with Words Formidable. On the back of the savage beast, Gongzi and the others, who had just arrived, caught the sight, and even Jin Songhai couldn't help but exclaim. "'Tis indeed formidable to be able to see through the flaw of the attack in an instant. Charging straight into the eye of the storm to tide through the barrage. To do that, just possessing an exceptional eye of discernment wouldn't be sufficient. More importantly, one has to have great mental fortitude." Gongzi nodded in agreement as well. Most probably, even this Luo Qianhong will lose. However, there are many troops in this Shenyuan royal palace, and no matter how powerful Zhong Xian is, he is still an individual. It'll be impossible for him to withstand the might of a country. What should we do? Should we help him? Jin Songhai asked hesitantly. He must have realized this problem as well. The reason why he asked for Jiyu Mu's assistance is probably to ward off these soldiers. Gongzi said. Of the many occupations, master teachers possess the strongest individual offensive power. However, in terms of facing multiple enemies at once, poison masters reign supreme. With a sufficient poison stockpile, it was futile no matter how many enemies charged at a poison master. That should be so. Jin Songhai nodded in agreement. Let's not rush in first. Given how this young 2-star master teacher managed to see through the flaws in the battle technique in a half-transcension expert in an instant, his eye of discernment and knowledge are indeed incredible. If he wishes for someone's assistance, he would have already rendered Xianxia's help. Since he didn't do so, he probably wishes to do the deed alone. We'll only go in when he's unable to hold on anymore. Gongzi chuckled. Yes. Jin Songhai nodded. Then, looking at the sight below, his eyebrows shot up. Luo Qianhong has lost. As Jin Songhai spoke, on the heavens altar, Zhongxian had dived out from the stream and struck the other party's chest with his elbow. Pang! Struck with immense brute strength, Luo Qianhong's face warped together. He was immediately sent flying, crashing heavily onto the ground. The head of the Master Teacher Pavilion, a 3-star intermediate master teacher, a half-transcension expert on the 3rd place on the green leaf board, was defeated in just a few breaths. The crowd flew into an uproar. All along, Luo Qianhong was a figure synonymous with invincible in their hearts, and he possessed innumerable fans. They thought that he would surely be able to defeat that young lad, who wasn't even 20 yet, easily. However, the one who was defeated turned out to be Luo Qianhong himself. Not to mention, he was utterly crushed. On the top of the green leaf pavilion, Elder Liao Qingshuan subconsciously asked, "Pavilion head, does the 1st place on the young leaf board still belong to Crown Prince Ding Mu?" Ding Mu? Nonsense. Of course it's that master teacher Zhongxian. How can the two of them be compared with each other? You must be pulling my leg. Pavilion head Dai Feng said. But you just said that there was no one who could match Crown Prince Ding Mu in the past 500 years, and it would be like that for the next 500. Elder Liao Qingshuan asked in bewilderment. It was just a moment ago that the other party praised the Crown Prince up to the stars. Why did he suddenly change his tune for another person? Wasn't this way too fast? Did I say that? Elder Liao, let's not bother about such unnecessary matters. Hurry up and send some men to look into that young man's background. Having his lapse in judgment exposed, Pavilion head Dai Feng's face flushed. He hurriedly issued some instructions to clear away his awkwardness. Yes. Elder Liao Qingshuan immediately walked out to attend to the matter. The Green Leaf Pavilion was in charge of gathering intelligence on everything within the territory of Shenyuan Kingdom. For such an expert to appear without them noticing, it was truly a failure on their part. His strength. The crowd was in disbelief. Mo Yu, who was on top of the howling firmament beast, was even more so. She had witnessed the other party's growth for herself throughout the journey. She thought that even if Zhongxian were to become a Zhizuan realm pinnacle within 4 days, he would surely be the weakest of that tier. After all, it would take some time to adapt to one's newfound strength, and on top of that, one's Junqi would be a little unstable as well. Yet, Zhongxian actually managed to defeat a half-transcension expert so easily. Was that fellow even human? Not only did his cultivation raise quickly, it was even reinforced perfectly. His strength was stable and deep, and there wasn't the slightest sign of instability. How in the world did he do it? That strike caused Luo Qianhong severe injuries. He felt so stifled that he could go insane. At this moment, all he felt was regret. Why was he so foolish as to listen to Ding Mu's lies? How could a person who could force him into hiding in the Master Teacher Pavilion be an ordinary figure? If he didn't get involved, he could at least uphold his honor. Yet, all he had done now was embarrass himself. After this incident, his prestige as the head of the Master Teacher Pavilion would surely plummet, and many people would find faults with him. As a 2-star Master Teacher, I challenged a 3-star Master Teacher. This can be considered as insubordination. After I'm done with the matter here, I'll offer an explanation to the Master Teacher Pavilion through crashing the pavilion myself. Flinging his sleeves, Zhongxian harumphed. Pavilion crashing referred to the act of challenging an entire Master Teacher Pavilion as an individual. Regardless of whether it was a conflict, a dispute, or unintentional disrespect, as long as one didn't betray humanity, one could crash a pavilion to absolve one of his crimes, and the headquarters would not pursue the matter. Crashing the pavilion. Luo Qianhong's face turned pale. Even though a successful pavilion crashing rarely occurred, as long as it happened, the Master Teacher Pavilion would be as good as destroyed. It would become the laughingstock of the entire Myriad Kingdom alliance. He would be forced to step down as the Pavilion Master, and in the worst-case scenario, the headquarters might even summon him to conduct an investigation. After all, If one was forced to the point of resorting to pavilion crashing, this meant that the matter had reached a dire state. Putong. Luo Qianhong's body was suddenly sapped of strength, and he fell to the ground. It was just a moment ago that he was standing majestically before the crowd, but after hearing those words, he found himself falling into despair. What kind of monster did Dingmu offend? Ignoring the despairing Luo Qianhong, Zhongxian glanced forward and saw that the inauguration was about to come to an end. As such, he hurriedly advanced forward. Stop him! Seeing that even the master-teacher pavilion had failed to stop the other party, and the other party even declared his intentions of pavilion crashing, Dingmu's complexion turned awful. Hualala! Along with his bellow, innumerable soldiers immediately stepped forward to surround Zhongxian. The swords that they drew gleamed coldly under the sun. These soldiers weren't strong, and most of them were only at Dingli realm. However, it was their numbers that were truly impressive. On the vast heavens altar, there were at least several thousands of them. A formation consisting of several thousand soldiers. Even a half-transcension would have to back down before such a terrifying force. Zhongxian, be careful. Mo Yu's face paled. As an individual, how could he possibly withstand an army? A Dingli realm soldier was no threat to him, and fighting 10 was just a walk in the park. However, when the numbers added up to several thousands, the nature of the event changed. No matter how strong an individual was, there was a limit to one's stamina. In a battle of attrition, Zhongxian would eventually lose. This was the reason why itinerant cultivators didn't dare offend kingdoms. There was nothing an individual cultivator could do before the might of an entire country. This will be troublesome. Jin Songhai frowned. As a transcendent mortal realm expert, it would be difficult for even him to face a few thousand fighter realm cultivators at once. Killing a commander was easy, but facing off with an entire army was difficult. Indeed, this will be troublesome. Unless he uses the means of a poison master. Gongzi frowned as well. Even Jin Songhai would be troubled to face so many soldiers, needless to say, the other party. Even though the strength this Zhongxian had displayed was outstanding, he was still far from matching up to his subordinate, Jin Songhai. The only way to achieve victory was to use the means of a poison master. Otherwise, no matter how powerful he was, he would surely eventually run dry before this huge army. He can't use the means of the poison master here. As a master teacher, killing the crown prince of a conferred kingdom is already a huge blemish on his records. I fear that if he were to use poison, he might incur the displeasure of the master teacher pavilion headquarters. On top of that, he might be regarded as a traitor, given the hostile relationship between the master teacher pavilion and the poison hall. Grand Elder Wei Yuqing said. Hall Master Gu Mu, if things get down to it, I think it would be better for you to make a move. As an elder of the Beast Hall, Grand Elder Wei Yuqing had a deep understanding of the affairs of the master teachers. This occupation served as the moral compass of the entire continent. To kill an inaugurating crown prince was already scandalous in itself. If Zhongxian were to use the means of a poison master on top of that, his reputation would be ruined. As a master teacher, reputation was everything. Who would be willing to admit a person with questionable conduct as their teacher? It would become a huge blemish of his life that he would never be able to wash off. It would be nigh impossible for him to win the respect of other master teachers around the world and advance to a higher rank. All right. Hall Master Gu Mu nodded. He was invited here precisely for this matter. As long as he were to offer his assistance, he could be considered as to have repaid the debt of his senior granduncle. Let's wait a while longer first. Look at Zhongxian's gaze. It seems like he has an idea in mind. After agreeing to the matter, Hall Master Gu Mu was about to make a move when Gongzi's voice suddenly echoed. Gaze! Hall Master Gu Mu was taken aback. He hurriedly glanced downward and he realized that something was amiss as well. Despite being surrounded by so many experts, the young man below didn't panic at all. Instead, he faced everything with composure. Way too much composure. If it was anyone else, they would have surely panicked under such circumstances. He must already have an idea in mind. Otherwise, he couldn't possibly remain so calm. Gongzi said. Let's watch on first. UN. The crowd nodded in agreement as they turned their gazes to the site below. Just as they were wondering what kind of method the young man was going to use to deal with these soldiers, a voice echoed. The core of cultivation lies in persistence. Only with diligence can one achieve improvement. For a Dingli realm to reach Pishue, there are three main factors. Firstly, one must accurately gauge the strength required for opening one's acupoint. A crisp voice echoed from the young man's mouth. A lecture. He's conducting a lecture now. Has he gone mad? Everyone was wondering what kind of strategy the young man would have against the thousands of soldiers before him. When the other party started preaching, everyone stared at one another in bewilderment. What was this? Surrounded by soldiers, yet he started preaching? Everyone thought that the troublemaker would surely fail terribly, but the other party had yet to lose yet. Everyone thought that the interference of the master-teacher pavilion could mediate the conflict, but the other party declared that he would crash the pavilion, not sparing the master-teacher pavilion any pride at all. Now, just as everyone thought that the heavens altar would be washed with blood, the young man began preaching. Can you at least obey common sense? Your actions are way too unfathomable. The group on top of the savage beasts were also stunned, unable to comprehend what Xianxia was up to. No, this isn't just a lecture. Suddenly, Gongzi seemed to realize something and his face warped in shock. His body trembled lightly as he said, "This is impartation of heaven's will. Expelling 100 enemies with a word, eradicating an army with a phrase." Chapter 437. Expelling an army with words 2 in 1 impartation of heaven's will. Everyone was bewildered. Those who were slightly more knowledgeable knew that impartation of heaven's will was a unique ability to master teachers. As long as one's soul depth was above 3.0, and the content one spoke was aligned with the essence of cultivation and was devoid of errors, there was a chance it could be triggered. Once triggered, those listening to the lecture would find their Xianxia being driven automatically, resulting in their cultivation being raised subconsciously. This sounded incredible, but in truth, all master teachers were capable of doing so. Given how talented that Xianxia was, it wasn't completely unexpected for him to be able to utilize this ability in the midst of his lecture. The impartation of heaven's will isn't a very powerful ability. However, if one can reach a high level of mastery in it, its effects can be amazing. Gongzi said as his body trembled in disbelief. A high level of mastery. The crowd was even more bewildered. Elder Jin should know that my physical condition hasn't been good ever since a young age, resulting in my inability to cultivate. As such, I've spent my time immersed in books, and I've read nearly all of the books accessible to me once. I once read, in an ancient manual, that when the impartation of heavens will reaches the highest level, one would be able to utilize the voice of truth, which was capable of striking the depths of a person's soul directly. Even if the other party was an enemy, he would willingly concede to you and address you as teacher. Taking a deep breath, Gongzi suppressed his heavy breathing and spoke up. Voice of truth. Everyone widened their eyes in shock. Did the impartation of heavens will possess such incredible effects? If that was the case, wouldn't one be almost invincible? Regardless of who it was, one just had to conduct a lesson for the other party to submit to him. All living beings in the world would be considered as one student. Wait a moment. A person suddenly flashed across Grand Elder Wei Yuqing's mind as his face paled and his eyes narrowed. With quivering lips, he asked, "Do you mean Empyrean Xianxia?" It was said that Xianxia's words could bring about a celestial phenomenon, and there was none who had heard his lecture who wouldn't call him teacher. Even the most formidable and most hostile enemy would immediately concede to him and willingly serve him as his student. There was a very old legend depicting Xianxia when he hadn't reached the level of a 9-star master teacher yet. Back then, there was a person named Tui who carried intense animosity against him and thus wanted to claim his life. He had looked into Xianxia's affairs and heard that the other party often held lectures beneath a certain tree. Thus, he decided to hide within the lush leaves of the tree with a weapon in hand, ready to strike when Xianxia appeared. In the end, his efforts paid off. Xianxia walked over to the tree and began conducting a lecture. However, after hearing a few words, Tu immediately felt embarrassed by himself, and he leaped out of his hiding spot and acknowledged Xianxia as his teacher. It was due to this legend that Xianxia earned himself the nickname of World's Teacher, and his name spread far and wide. Without any exception, those who had heard Xianxia's words would eventually become his student. This was the ability that only Xianxia possessed. Could Zhongxian be capable of the same feat as well? Indeed. The person I am referring to is Xianxia. Clenching his fists tightly, Gongzi's face turned red in agitation. Xianxia's impartation of heavens had reached an incredible level. With an utterance, the entire world would tremble before him. With an articulation, a gale would rage and thunder would rumble. Expelling 100 enemies with a word, eradicating an army with a phrase. It was said that when the otherworldly demonic tribe sent its army to assassinate him, Xianxia was alone. However, without any fear, he began to preach, indifferent even when the swords and axes were before him. A few minutes later, the army of otherworldly demonic tribe was completely wiped out due to infighting. At which, Gongzi's pitch-black eyes turned to look at the others. Don't you think that what Zhongxian is doing resembles the plot of the story? It does resemble it a bit. With pale faces, the crowd trembled slightly. What you mean is that? Beast Tamer Zhong, no, Zhongxia intends on conducting a lecture to command these soldiers to back off. Grand Elder Wei Yuqing's body shuddered in disbelief. There were many legends on Xianxia going around on the continent, and over time, they had become overly exaggerated, making it difficult to determine fact from fiction. Thus, very few people took the stories for real. The matter of preaching to destroy the otherworldly demonic tribe was one of such common legends, and many people simply laughed it off. However, looking at Zhongxia preaching before so many enemies, their hearts started beating wildly. I'm not too sure either. This story only happened to appear in my mind. Since Zhongxia chose to do so, he probably has his reasons for it. After all, he can't possibly just be doing it out of boredom. Gongzi said. He wasn't Zhongxian, he couldn't accurately guess the other party's thoughts. Now that Gongzi raised the idea, I think that what you say is really true. Look. In disbelief, Grand Elder Wei Yuqing was just about to continue inquiring about it when Jin Songhai's voice sounded. Jin Songhai had a grim look on his face as he stared at the scene on the heaven's altar beneath with a look of incredulity. Turning his gaze over, Grand Elder Wei Yuqing was also stunned. Half of the ferocious soldiers who had wanted to attack Zhongxian together suddenly fell in a daze, and as though the best treasures in the world had appeared before them, a look of delight slowly spread on their faces. As for the other half, they went further as to dump their weapons on the ground and sat cross-legged, beginning to cultivate as per the other party's guidance. All of a sudden, the menacing atmosphere suddenly turned into a sight of harmony. It is actually true. With widened eyes and mouth agape, Grand Elder Wei Yuqing seemed to have petrified. No words could describe his shock at the moment. Suddenly, an aura behind him began to surge intensely. Pila Pala. The sound of beans popping echoed. Unknowingly, drunk on Zhongxian's words, Sun Qiong Zhenqi became driving on its own accord, and he broke through his Dingli realm bottleneck, successfully stepping into the realm of a Pishua cultivator. Breaking through one's bottleneck through just words. Seems like the rumors are true. Taking in this sight, Gongzi and the others clenched their fists tightly. If they weren't sure before, it couldn't be any clearer now. To break through the bottleneck between Dingli and Pishua with just words. This was similar to the ability depicted in that legend between Xianxia and the otherworldly demonic tribe. Even if other master teachers were able to do the same as well, it would still require accumulation on the cultivator's part and some time. But how long has it only been since Zhongxian started his lecture? 20 breaths. 30 breaths. At most, it was only 40 breaths. In other words, in less than a minute, not only did Zhongxian manage to stimulate the Zhenqi in Sun Qiong body, he even successfully induced a rise in cultivation realm in the latter. Such capability couldn't even be seen in 4-star pinnacle master teachers. Wait, look at those citizens around the heavens altar. Jiu Mu said. The group hurriedly shifted their gazes over to the crowd. The citizens who were busy watching the commotion also began sitting down and meditating according to Zhongxian's guidance. The sound of beans popping echoed throughout the square, and it was hard to imagine how many people had managed to achieve a breakthrough during this short period of time. These people were residents who had grown up here in Xianxia Kingdom, and they each possessed a dear patriotism toward the royal palace. Thus, when the young man barged into the heavens altar and declared his malicious intentions against the crown prince, they felt deep hostility for the latter. However, in an instant, all of these emotions turned into admiration and gratitude. An itinerant cultivator, without the guidance of master teachers and formidable cultivation technique, would have to spend much effort just to break through a small cultivation realm. But now, with just a few words from the other party, they were making this leap in their cultivation. This was something they couldn't have fathomed before. The hostility they felt slowly faded, turning to gratitude and admiration. Having benefited from Xianxia's guidance, the latter could be considered as half a teacher to them already. How is this possible? In the green leaf pavilion, pavilion head Dai Feng grabbed the edges of the windows tightly as he watched the phenomenon unfold before him. His head spun in astonishment. As the head of an intelligence gathering agency, he had heard of the legend between Kong Shu and the otherworldly demonic tribe as well. He thought that it was just a legend, but to think that it would be true. To remain unaware when such a formidable master teacher had come to Xianxia Royal City. The Green Leaf Pavilion could close down its services already. No, this can't be. I'll investigate myself to see who this Xianxia is. What kind of existence did Crown Prince Dingmu offend? Upon thinking of this, pavilion head Dai Feng's lips twitched. Unable to remain seated, he dashed down the pavilion. For the Green Leaf Pavilion to be unaware of such huge news was a massive failure. If he didn't gather all information related to the background of this fellow, he wouldn't be able to sleep well tonight. What are you all doing? Stop listening to his nonsense and kill him. Seeing all of the guards falling into a daze, Crown Prince Dingmu bellowed frenziedly. The reason why he had stationed an army on top of the heavens altar was to guard against any sudden movements or mystic treasure of that young man. Yet, with just a single lecture, the other party had successfully left everyone dazed. What was this? I told you all to kill him. What are you all doing listening to his lecture? This isn't a classroom. I'm commanding all of you to kill him. Gritting his teeth, Crown Prince Dingmu continued howling. However, before he could finish his words, all of the soldiers turned their heads simultaneously. Shut up. Boom. Even pebbles could be stacked up into a mountain. With so many trained Dingli realm and Pishua realm experts roaring furiously at the same time, it was as though a strike of celestial lightning had flown across the heavens, striking down on Dingmu. Pu. Struck by the sonic boom, Crown Prince Dingmu's ears rang, and blood started flowing down his mouth and his nose. Even his eyes turned red from the impact, and it seemed as though blood would ooze down at any moment. Even a transcendent mortal expert would have to avoid a combined attack from several thousand soldiers at once, so of course a mere Zhizuan realm advanced stage cultivator like him was wounded. You all. Quickly retreating a dozen steps, Crown Prince Dingmu felt as though he was going mad. These were all his soldiers. They lived off the royal family's stipends, and they were specially groomed so that, when the need arises, they could be mobilized. Yet, all of them turned against him. What in the world? Dingmu's body couldn't stop convulsing. It's all your fault. With reddened eyes, Dingmu glared at the preaching Xianxia with clenched jaws. Didn't I just kill a student of yours? Do you have to come all the way here and go to the extent of wounding a 3-star master teacher, the head of the master teacher pavilion, and making so many soldiers turn against me? Damn it! Roaring furiously, Crown Prince Dingmu scrambled for an idea to win back the hearts of these soldiers. But at this moment, standing at the very center of the crowd, the young man suddenly stopped his lecture, and scanning the surroundings, he said, "Bo! Huala!" In that instant, several thousands of soldiers, as well as the countless spectators, immediately kneeled to the floor as respect and admiration gleamed in their eyes. Then, their voices echoed in the square. Paying respect to teacher. It's a half-teacher formality. So many people are bowing to Xianxia earnestly. On the back of the howling firmament beast, Mo Yu swallowed a mouthful of saliva. She knew that young man's talent as a master teacher surpassed that of ordinary people, but she didn't expect that he would be able to win over the hearts of the soldiers on the heavens altar and the surrounding crowd with just a lecture. While a half-teacher couldn't compare up to one's true teacher, it was still a relationship surpassing that of most ordinary ones. In this world, the prestige of teachers was immense, and students were expected to treat their teachers with the utmost respect. At that moment, Xianxia was standing with his hands behind his back, watching nonchalantly at the kneeling crowd as though a conqueror. Ding Mu, who was undergoing the crowning ceremony at this instant, seemed no different from a clown. To remain nonchalant before an army of several thousand, and conduct a lesson to turn them into his students instead. Xianxia, perhaps you might really be able to fare well in the master-teacher tournament and strike your name out into the world. Clenching her fists tightly, Mo Yu's eyes reddened in agitation. That was a true genius. There was only a single outcome for those who refused to submit: to be crushed. Regardless of whether you are an expert or an influential individual, before absolute might, nothing else mattered. Mo Yu could already see the storm that Xianxia would cause during the master-teacher tournament. With just a short moment of preaching, he's able to make so many people willingly acknowledge him as a half-teacher. On top of the absolute control over the impartation of heaven's will, his soul depth must have reached at least 12.0. In other words, in terms of soul depth, he isn't inferior to a 4-star teacher. Luo Qianhong's teeth were clattering together. In that instant, it felt as though he had dropped into an ice vault, and he shuddered in fear. Even though Gongzi was well informed, he wasn't a master teacher. As such, he was unaware of many matters. It wasn't that difficult to utilize the impartation of heaven's will. One only had to speak of content aligned with the essence of cultivation. But to make so many people fall into a trance and achieve a breakthrough in their cultivation simultaneously was no simple feat. There was a high requirement for one's soul depth. Putting everything aside, the insight energy contained within the other party's words felt as though a cool breeze to the ears, inducing subconscious trust into him. With just this, Luo Qianhong could conclude that the other party's soul depth was at least 12.0. Every 3.0 difference in soul depth was a demarcation zone for a master teacher. A soul depth above 12.0 was equivalent to a 4-star master teacher. A 4-star master teacher beneath 20? What kind of monster is that? Isn't the other party just a 2-star master teacher? Isn't the other party just a reckless countryside bumpkin? If I knew how formidable the other party is, I would never have gotten involved. Glancing at one another, Luo Qianhong and Bai Chen could see the fear and regret in each other's eyes. If they could, they truly wanted to tear apart that Crown Prince Ding Mu at this instant. What one feared the most was a lousy teammate that would pull one down. This time, they were truly done in badly by that fellow. Pavilion Master, what should we do now? Bai Chen asked with a tearful face while suppressing his injuries. Initially, he was plotting his revenge for this humiliation. However, after seeing that the other party's soul depth had exceeded 12, such thoughts vanished altogether. The greatest difficulty to the promotion of a master teacher was soul depth. As long as one's soul depth reached the mark, with sufficient time, the rest wasn't too much of a problem. To exact vengeance on a future 4-star master teacher? He really didn't have the guts to do so. Go back and make some preparations for his pavilion crashing. All we can wish for is for him to fail. Once he passes, we'll be doomed. With a resigned expression, Luo Qianhong shook his head. If the other party failed the pavilion crashing, he could still sell the other party a favor and let bygones be bygones. However, once the other party succeeded, there would be nothing left for him. What the heck was this? How did he offend such a monster? With a stiff body, Luo Qianhong was just about to say something more when the young man standing at the very center of the crowd coldly surveyed the surroundings before speaking with an authoritative voice. Since you all address me as your teacher, are you all going to stop me from killing this person? Becoming a celestial master teacher had not just granted Xianxia with the eye of insight, his impartation of heavens will had also made a huge breakthrough. Once these people achieve a breakthrough in their cultivation and became his student, the rest was a walk in the park. We wouldn't dare. If teacher doesn't wish to dirty your hands, we can do it for you. Despite his position, Crown Prince Ding Mu has committed many vile deeds. We've long wished to teach him a lesson. As long as teacher gives the order, we're willing to take him down for you. Hualala. The army of soldiers immediately opened up a pathway, and at the same time, several voices sounded here and there. Crown Prince Dingmu was a willful and arrogant person. He had made many unwise decisions and committed innumerable vile deeds. Even though many soldiers were aware and infuriated by it, none of them dared to voice their complaints. However, before this half-teacher of theirs, their true sentiments came pouring out. You all! Crown Prince Dingmu's heart had already turned cold upon facing the betrayal of so many soldiers, and upon hearing those words, he nearly fainted on the spot. The armies that other kingdoms groomed were willing to lay down their lives for the royal family. But what in the world was with the army he had groomed? He commanded them to kill someone for him, but all of them ended up acknowledging the latter as their teacher and even offered their services. The heck? I am the Crown Prince, the future Emperor of Xianxia Kingdom. How can I be killed by trash like you? It won't be that easy to kill me. Give me the crown. Dingmu's expression warped in savagery. My life is my own. Don't even dream about laying your filthy hands on me. With a loud roar, Dingmu rushed toward the old Emperor Ding Chong, snatched the crown from his hands, and placed it on his head. At this time, he could care less about formalities or traditions. He walked directly to the throne at the center of the Heaven's altar and sat down. Under the decree of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance, I am now the Emperor of Xianxia Kingdom. Let's see who dares to touch me now. With a face distorted by insanity, he bellowed furiously. Sitting on the throne with a crown on his head, he could be officially considered as the new Emperor of Xianxia Kingdom. As such, he was under the protection of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. Putting aside a 2-star master teacher, even a 4-star master teacher would have to think twice before laying a hand on him. Otherwise, if an emperor could be killed that easily, what was the use of the existence of the alliance? The alliance was a balance of power between the various kingdoms. While internal struggles were reluctantly overlooked, the murder of an emperor was something that was vehemently disallowed. This is bad. The soldiers who had offered to make a move for Zhongxian looked at one another hesitantly upon seeing this move. If a crown prince was killed, the emperor could still appoint a new one. However, killing an emperor was synonymous with challenging the prestige of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. Zhongxian's face darkened as well. He didn't expect the fellow to be so shameless as to ignore the ceremony and immediately don the crown either. Now that the other party was the emperor, killing him would bring about a lot of trouble. Ha ha, I am now the emperor. With the backing of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance behind me, do any of you dare touch me? Are any of you qualified to touch me? Seeing the hesitance in everyone's eyes, Dingmu roared in laughter. Glee reflected in his eyes. Knowing that Zhongxian would go after him, he had already planned out his countermeasure. Everything he prepared was just for this day. You might be capable, talented, strong, and above all, you have a good teacher. However, I am not lacking either. I have an entire conferred kingdom behind me. I have the Myriad Kingdom Alliance behind me. With such an identity, even if I have faulted, only the Alliance had the rights to pursue it. A 2-star master teacher like you aren't worthy. Also, all of you, despite living off the stipends of the kingdom, how dare you all betray the kingdom? You all deserve to die. Dingmu roared furiously with a savage expression. We! The faces of the crowd paled. Even though there was just a thin line between the crown prince and the emperor of a kingdom, this gap meant everything. The crown prince didn't possess the authority to behead so many soldiers, but the emperor did. Zhongxian, Pavilion Master Luo has proposed to mediate the matter previously, but you disagreed. It's too late to change your mind now. After mocking Zhongxian, Dingmu stared haughtily at the crowd, and with the disposition befitting of an emperor, he declared, I'll give you all a chance to make up for your mistakes. As long as you all kill this intruder, I'll pardon you all for your previous sins. On top of that, I'll even confer a nobility on the one who finishes him off and grant him a life of utmost prestige and wealth. Why? Do you all still intend on going against my orders, the orders of your emperor? Seeing the crowd hesitating, Dingmu gazed downward at the faces below, suppressing the entire square with the majesty of an emperor. Wang! However, before Dingmu could finish his words, a jade token flew out. Then, bright light burst forth from it, forming a gigantic image. The image consisted of just 3 words: Myriad Kingdom Alliance. Following which, A deep voice reverberated in the air. The succession of the throne requires a prior announcement and a complete ceremony. Ding Mu has disregarded the rules and snatched the imperial authority willfully. The alliance declares his inauguration invalid. The voice echoed loudly throughout Xianxia royal city, and even the clouds seemed to tremor slightly under it. This is a decree from the Myriad Kingdom Alliance's envoy. Someone uttered amidst the crowd. Chapter 438. The Great Xianxia Formation Silence. Ding Mu had just declared his unparalleled authority within the kingdom when the decree of the envoy arrived the next instant. Everyone was dumbfounded. The Myriad Kingdom Alliance was several 100,000 kilometers away from Xianxia Kingdom, and even when riding on a Zhizuan realm pinnacle savage beast, it would still take several dozen days of journey to travel here. This envoy, sure, is efficient. This. Impossible. How can this be possible? While jaws were falling to the ground, Ding Mu's final string of rationality finally snapped. Are you playing with me? I had just barely managed to become the emperor and force the other party to step down. Victory is right before me, and yet, such a twist just had to occur at this moment. With this, no matter what I do, I'll just be regarded as an unofficial and unrecognized sovereign. Conferred kingdoms were vassal kingdoms to the Myriad Kingdom Alliance, and if the latter refused to recognize his position, nothing he said would be useful. Your Majesty, that is an authentic decree from the envoy of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. I've seen it before. Seeing the doubt on Ding Mu's face, an official walked over with a nervous look and reported. The decree of the envoy couldn't be forged. The words Myriad Kingdom Alliance possessed a unique authority to it that no one else could imitate. With just a single look, one could determine whether it was authentic or not. Men, the left minister is spouting nonsense and shaking the foundation of the country. Kill him. Ding Mu was already in a frenzied state, and the words of the official pushed him off the edge. He immediately bellowed a command. Your Majesty. The crowd stared at one another hesitantly, not knowing what to do. You all. Seeing that everyone was disregarding his orders, Ding Mu's eyes reddened in rage. Just as he was about to roar furiously once more, an impassive voice sounded in the air. Since the Myriad Kingdom Alliance refuses to recognize you, that means that your position is unofficial. No one will listen to the commands of a fake emperor. Turning around, he saw Xianxia gazing at him with cold eyes. In truth, Xianxia was also bewildered by the situation. Before coming, he had already prepared himself for the worst situation. Regardless of whether the other party became the emperor or not, he would make his move. Of all things, he didn't expect the Myriad Kingdom Alliance's involvement in this matter. The appearance of the decree meant that Ding Mu's ascension to the throne was unlawful, and the Myriad Kingdom Alliance wouldn't pursue the affair even if he were killed. So what if these useless fools refuse to obey my commands? Do you think that I'll fear you just because of that? You might be strong, but it won't be that easy to kill me. Having lost the throne, the backing of the Master-Teacher Pavilion, and being unable to mobilize his subordinates, Ding Mu knew that he had no choice but to resort to brute force. His face warped as though a ravenous wolf as he glared fixedly at the young man before him. Then, he abruptly reached forward to grab the jade seal. With the jade seal in his hands, his disposition changed all of the sudden. In an instant, he felt as if he were a towering mountain standing before everyone else. Even a half-transcension expert would have to back off before the powerful aura he was emitting at this moment. The reason why our Ding clan was able to build a massive kingdom that no other kingdoms dare to attack and maintain our lineage for more than a millennium isn't just purely through brute force. It is because of a formation. The infrastructures in Xianxia Kingdom are positioned in a way that aligns with the sun, moon, and the stars, forming a grade 4 primary formation. You wish to kill me? Dream on. Even if I can't become the emperor, I'll pull you down along with me. Roaring furiously, the jade seal in his hands flew in the air, triggering the formation. In an instant, it seemed as though the entire capital had come to life. An incredibly powerful pressure fell down from the skies. All of a sudden, the crowd in the square suddenly felt something sealing their movements. At the same time, a powerful pressure overwhelmed them, threatening to kill them if they were to make an unwise move. It's the Great Xianxia Formation. His actually triggered the Great Xianxia Formation. Amidst the crowd, an official's face suddenly paled. His body slackened, and he fell weakly to the ground. Great Xianxia Formation? What's that? There were many people who were unaware of its existence, and a person asked anxiously amidst the crowd. It said that the founding ancestor of Xianxia Kingdom was a formidable formation master. After uniting the lands and building the kingdom, he chose this location to build the capital. Using the mountains, rivers, and the infrastructure as the formation flags, he built an immense formation. Even a mortal transcendent expert would die easily if he were to be caught in it. This formation can only be triggered by the imperial seal, and it's the final line of defense of the kingdom. No one here will be able to withstand its immense might. The official trembled uncontrollably as he spoke. Previously, when Dingmu ordered them to kill the other party, no one listened to him. Now that he had activated the formation and trapped everyone within it, if he intended to take revenge, who could stand against him? Hearing those words and feeling the violent might of a formation shrouding them, the crowd's faces warped in fear. They thought, given the disparity in strength between the other master teacher and Crown Prince Dingmu, even if no one were to obey his commands, there was nothing for them to worry about. No one could have expected for the latter to have such an ace up his sleeves. A grade 4 formation could kill even a mortal transcendent expert, so how could mere fighter realm cultivators like them withstand it? And without sufficient strength, it was impossible for them to break out of it. I looked like they were doomed. You are an envoy of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. While a pandemonium had broken out below, in the air, on the back of a savage beast, Wei Yuqing looked at the young man with tightly clenched fists. From the attitude of the others toward this Gongzi, he could tell that the other party's standing was definitely extremely high. Otherwise, Jiu Mu's teacher, as a 4-star poison master, wouldn't act so deferentially to him. But even so, he didn't expect the other party to be an envoy from the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. An envoy holding a decree was representative of the head of the alliance. If anyone dared to challenge his authority, he could kill them as he pleased. In other words, he possessed unparalleled authority within the territories of the alliance. Yet, to think that the person wielding such immense authority would just be a teenage child. If he hadn't seen the other party throwing out the token personally, he would have never believed it to be true. UN. Gongzi nodded silently. At this moment, his gaze was directed at the formation below, and a frown appeared on his face. A moment later, he turned to the elder beside him. Is there any way for you to break this formation? Gongzi, you should also know that I'm not adept at formations. Jin Songhai's face flushed in embarrassment. Even though he was a transcendent mortal expert, his occupation was a poison master. His knowledge of formations was severely limited. On top of that, the formation below was incredibly massive, and even if a 4-star primary formation master were to be here, it would be hard for him to stop the formation. This formation makes use of the mountains and rivers in the surroundings to augment its might. On top of that, it hasn't been used before ever since it was set up, and over time, a massive amount of spiritual energy had accumulated within it. Not just me, I'm afraid that, even if Pavilion Master Kang were to be here, he would be helpless before it. After a moment of hesitation, Jin Songhai spoke his analysis. Even though he wasn't adept in formations, as a transcendent mortal expert of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance, he still possessed a decent discernment ability. It wasn't too difficult for him to determine how fearsome the formation below was. Even the head of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance Master Teacher Pavilion Master Kang, would be helpless before it. And Pavilion Master Kang was the most capable formation master throughout the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. Through this, the fearsomeness of the formation was apparent. I know that this formation is formidable, but, do you have any way to save him? Gongzi couldn't help but ask. Deciphering and stopping a formation was very much different from saving a person from a formation. In which case, the latter was much easier than the former. Jin Songhai shook his head and said, this formation has been nourished over a long period of time, granting it immense might. Life and death hinge on just a single thought of the one controlling the formation. To break it, it'll require 16 mortal transcendent experts standing at 16 different locations. Even if it's just saving someone from within, it would require at least 5 people at the same level as me to make a move simultaneously. On top of the grade, the scale also determined the strength of the formation. The larger the formation set up, the more powerful it would be. This was the reason why formation plates were lacking in might. The formation below covered the entire Xianxia royal city, extending for a length of several hundred kilometers. On top of that, it had accumulated a frightening quantity of energy over the course of 1,000 years, making it a fearsome weapon. It would already be a blessing if a mortal transcendent expert could survive a killing formation of such might. Saving someone within was completely impossible. Then, what should we do? You also know that his Liu Cheng. Hearing that even his guard was helpless before this immense formation, Gongzi panicked. Don't panic. If it comes down to it, I'll just have to try barging into it. Jin Songhai gritted his teeth. He knew of the gratitude that Gongzi felt toward physician Liu Cheng. The other party had specially traveled from the Myriad Kingdom Alliance here just to look for him. If the other party were to die before him, wouldn't he die of regret? What do you mean by barging into it? At that moment, a doubtful voice sounded within the room. Turning around, the group saw that Sun Qiong was done with his cultivation and had stood up once more. Under Zhong Xian's impartation of Heaven's will, not only had Sun Qiong reinforced his Pishua realm cultivation, he had even opened up 3 acupoints. Thus, he was in good spirits. Sun Qiong had been on the verge of breaking through Dingli realm for a while now, so Zhong Xian's impartation of Heaven's will was exceptionally effective on him. Your young master is trapped in Ding Mu's formation, and he's in an extremely precarious situation now. If you can contact Xianxia, you should hurry up. I fear that Xianxia might be coming to his limits already. Seeing that Sun Qiong was done with his cultivation, Gongzi hurriedly advised. In truth, he regretted not getting Jin Songhai to make a move on Ding Mu when he threw out of the envoy's decree earlier on. If he had done so, such a situation wouldn't have occurred. He was here to repay the favor, but not only did he fail to achieve anything, he even landed his benefactor into a precarious situation. How could he have the face to live on if the other party really died? In his view, if not for the decree he threw out, Ding Mu wouldn't have been forced to activate the formation. Formation. Glancing out of the window to look at the site below, Sun Qiong brushed the matter off impassively. Seeing your grim faces, I thought that it would be some serious affair. Turns out that it's just this. Don't worry, the young master is fine. Hearing those words, Jin Songhai staggered and nearly fainted. Do you know how powerful this formation is? The one below is your young master. He's trapped in a formation which even a mortal transcendent expert would be unable to break out of. Yet, how can you remain so nonchalant? Are you truly that brave, or is there something wrong with your head? I have no idea. Sun Qiong waved his hands nonchalantly, but that doesn't make a difference. A small formation like this doesn't mean anything at all. Qianxian Kingdom had no formation masters at all, so how could Sun Qiong know anything about formations? Even if the most basic formation was laid out before him, he still wouldn't be able to decipher it at all. But even though he knew nothing at all, Zhao Yue and the others had recounted the events at the Lin clan back then to him at least a few hundred times. On top of that, he had also personally witnessed the young master kicking the formation at the residence of Lu Chong's ancestors to a stop. He knew that no one could match up to the young master in the field of formations. It might be something fearsome to the others, but to the young master, it was just a walk in the park. Doesn't mean anything at all? A small formation? How can you call Xianxia your young master and behave like that? Gongzi's face darkened and he nearly erupted on the spot. Chapter 439. Lucid mind. Upon hearing that their young master was trapped, other subordinates would surely hurriedly plead with others to save him. Yet, not only was this fellow not worried, he even looked at them with such an expression. Are you a subordinate or an enemy? That was a formation that even Pavilion Master Kang would find hard to break. Yet, to view it with such nonchalance, are you that brave or do you desperately crave for your young master to die here? Gongzi was about to faint from anger, and by the side, Wei Yuqing's eyes were also rolling around the place. If not for Zhong Xian entrusting his subordinate to him personally, he would have thought that this fellow was an imposter. Probably, He was the only one in the world who could watch idly as death loomed above his master. What's wrong? Sun Qiong couldn't comprehend why the other party had reprimanded him. I'll go then. I am indebted to Xianxia, and now that his student is in trouble, I can't sit idly by the side. Seeing how this cretin didn't have any intentions to look for Xianxia to save his young master, Jiu Mu and the others decided to disregard him altogether. You are intending to save the young master. Sun Qiong finally came to a realization, and a look of disdain appeared on his face. I didn't expect you all to be so inexperienced. And to think that one of you is the envoy from the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. It's just a formation. What's the big deal? With the young master around, you all really don't need to worry at all. Inexperienced. A fellow from an unranked kingdom who didn't even know what a formation was dared to look at the envoy from the Myriad Kingdom Alliance with disdain? The crowd was so furious that they nearly spurted blood. You are the one who's inexperienced. Your entire family is inexperienced. Gongzi clenched his jaws together, tempted to tear the fatty before him apart. But other than having him look for Xianxia, there was no better solution. Thus, suppressing his anger, he began to explain, this is the Great Xianyuan Formation, and nourished over a course of 1,000 years, it's the first time it's being activated. Oh! After hearing the explanation, Sun Qiong simply nodded his head indifferently and said, now that you're done, you should take a rest. You! Gongzi nearly flew into a rampage. It was as though the fellow before him didn't understand the human language at all. He had wasted his breath on him. Damn it! Forget it. This wasn't the time to be lashing out on this kind of heartless fellow. Saving Xianxia took priority. As such, he decided to disregard the fatty and turn to look at Jin Songhai instead. Elder Jin, I might require your strength on this matter. Here is a decree representing my identity. If Ding Mu insists on making a move, you are free to kill him on the spot. Just as Gongzi was issuing some instructions to Jin Songhai, intending to resolve the matter the brute way, Grand Elder Wei Yuqing and Jiu Mu suddenly exclaimed. What? Gongzi, look! Seeing the expressions on the duo, Guding, Gongzi's heart skipped a beat. Thinking that perhaps Zhongxian might have already died in that short moment of delay, he hurriedly turned his gaze down and his eyes widened in shock. That humongous formation which seemed as though it would wipe out everything within it suddenly vanished into thin air. The sight below was completely calm, as though nothing had happened at all. Zhongxian was still walking forward slowly, and at this moment, he was already less than 10 meters away from Ding Mu. What happened? Rubbing his eyes furiously, Gongzi was astounded. It was just a moment ago that he saw the formation ravaging, threatening to claim the lives of those inside at any moment. Yet, why did it disappear all of a sudden? Did he see wrongly? Just now. Just now. Wei Yuqing's face was completely pale, and his lips were quivering. It seemed like even speaking was a great difficulty for him at the moment. What happened? Jin Songhai couldn't help but ask as well. It seems like... Zhongxian stretched out a finger, and then, it simply turned out like this. Wei Yuqing was on the verge of tears. Despite witnessing it with his own eyes, the situation simply seemed even more unbelievable to him. What the heck was this? With just a light tap of a finger, the ravaging formation came to an instant stop. Didn't Jin Songhai and Gongzi just praise this formation to the skies? Didn't they say that even the Pavilion Master of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance Master Teacher Pavilion couldn't stop him, and it would require at least a dozen transcendent mortal experts to forcefully halt it? Yet, the other party stopped it so easily. Was he dreaming? Stopped it with a single finger. Jin Songhai and Gongzi nearly bit down on their tongues out of shock. Just as they were about to ask if the two of them had seen wrongly, Sun Qiong walked forward with both hands behind him and a proud look on his face. Our young master might have never taken the Formation Master examination, but this kind of weak formation means nothing to him at all. Then, he stared at the group disdainfully once more. How inexperienced. Envoy? For Star Poison Master? Pooey. In the end, you all still panic over minor situations like this. You. Being looked down, Gongzi was just about to rationalize it out with this fellow when Jin Songhai pointed below with a grim look. Gongzi, Look. Afraid that he would miss out anything just like before, he ignored Sun Qiong and turned his gaze downward as well. You. Impossible. While Gongzi, Jin Songhai, and the others were dying from shock above, Ding Mu was also on the verge of suffering a stroke. The Great Shenyuan Formation was his greatest backing. One of the main reasons why he hurriedly ended the inauguration ceremony was so that he could gain control of the Jade Seal. He thought that once he activated it, even the envoy would mean nothing at all. Yet, before such a formidable formation could work its course, the other party had already halted it with a light tap. Brother, who the hell are you? Without raising your legs, you could scare Bai Chen into leaping away with a single hit. You caused the half-transcension pavilion master Luo Qianhong to vomit buckets of blood, and now, you stopped such a formidable formation with a single finger. Are you sure that you are a 2-star master teacher and not the reincarnation of Kongshe? You should have expected this when you tried to kill me back then. Ignoring the other party's shock, Zhongxian continued advancing forward. The Great Shenyuan Formation might be vast and powerful, but just like any formation, it had a core. Since Ding Mu activated the formation via the Jade Seal on the Heaven's Altar, naturally, the core was somewhere around here as well. Through the Library of Heaven's Path, it wasn't too difficult for Zhongxian to determine the precise point to strike and stop it. You won't know who's the victor until the very end. Recovering from his shock, a savage expression reappeared on Ding Mu's face. Knowing that the formation was already useless, he threw the Jade Seal on the floor. Then, clenching his fists tightly, he propelled his cultivation and cloaked his hands with a layer of Xianxia. Phantom Battle Technique, Heaven-Shattering Fist. Ding Mu was only at Zhizuan Realm Advanced stage, but through this battle technique, he was able to take the top spot of the green leaf board. This showed how formidable this battle technique was. Knowing the other party was a tough adversary, Ding Mu drove his cultivation to his limits and took the initiative. Boom! The air was tightly compressed under his might, causing a deafening sonic boom. In the blink of an eye, his fist was already right before Zhongxian, headed for his chest. Strong. He's at Zhizuan Realm Pinnacle as well. To think that he'd made a breakthrough as well. Upon seeing the massive strength the Ding Mu displayed, the crowd was stunned. Many of those who were aware of the affairs of the Crown Prince realized that the Crown Prince wasn't at Zhizuan Realm Advanced stage as per the rumors, he had already reached pinnacle. It's not that he made a breakthrough. Rather, he used some kind of secret art. Luo Qianhong had a grim look on his face. He was a good friend of the other party, and the other party had been hiding in the Master Teacher Pavilion the past few days. As such, he had a good grasp over the other party's strength. Even though he had reached Zhizuan Realm Advanced stage for some time now, it would still take at least half a year before he could make another breakthrough. Thus, the only plausible explanation was that he had used some kind of secret art. Rumor has it that the royal family had a secret art which burned their blood essence in exchange for a temporary increment in their cultivation by 1 to 2 small realms. Even so, that Zhongxian is in trouble. He clenched his fists tightly. The reason why Ding Mu could reach the top of the young leaf board wasn't due to his position as the Crown Prince, but because he possessed true strength. Even without resorting to such secret art, he could defeat a Zhizuan Realm Pinnacle expert. With this leap in his cultivation, even Luo Qianhong himself would find it hard to triumph over the other party. That Zhongxian had only managed to injure him through exploiting the flaws in his techniques and his powerful physical body. On the other hand, Crown Prince Ding Mu, due to the spirit blood body nourishment formula of the royal family, possessed a powerful physical body as well. Regardless of whether it was his cultivation technique, battle technique, or physical body, there was no flaw to be picked from him. It would be impossible for Zhongxian to defeat the other party using the same means. This is your ace. Just as Luo Qianhong thought that Zhongxian would be unable to hold his ground against Ding Mu, the young man's calm voice sounded. After which, the young man flexed his fingers and grabbed forward, as though capturing a rabbit trapped in a cage. Who? Ding Mu's fist art was dispelled in an instant. Then, as though Ding Mu was a little chicken, Zhongxian grabbed at his neck, lifting him up. What heaven-shattering fist, phantom pinnacle battle technique, blood-burning secret art. Before that young man, it was as laughable as playing house. This is the realm which even 4-star master teachers find it hard to achieve, vanquishing facade, lucid mind. Narrowing his eyes, Luo Qianhong's face reflected his disbelief. Chapter 440. Ding Hong 2 in 1. Most cultivators were able to reach a state of mind at the level of 2 Dan Heart of Tranquil Water. But to exceed that level was extremely difficult. It was said that only upon reaching the level of a 4-star master teacher would one have the chance to make the breakthrough. Heart of Tranquil Water only allowed one to remain impervious to external factors. The higher realm to that was vanquishing facade, lucid mind that Luo Qianhong just exclaimed. Upon reaching this level, one would be able to peer through chaos to see the crux of the matter. At the same time, with a clearer mind, one's analytical power would grow substantially stronger. Even though it was far from a match for the Eye of Insight, it was useful in the sense that it provided a master teacher with a greater degree of rationalizing abilities. For example, no matter how knowledgeable one was, it was impossible for one to have seen all questions in the world and know the answers to them. However, if one had reached this state, one could easily deduce the motive of the one setting the question and the content which the question was trying to assess a person on. By seeing through all of the facade, one would be able to provide the most accurate answer. Knowledge is omnipresent around us, only waiting to be analyzed. As such, this realm was also known as lucid analytical realm. This Zhongxian was able to see through Ding Mu's heaven-shattering fist and blood-burning secret art, immediately aiming for the neck instead. Clearly, he had seen through all of the facades contained within the moves and the purposes each of them served. Even if the person hadn't reached the lucid analytical realm yet, he wasn't too far from it. This explained why the other party could neutralize his whisking sleeves so easily. As for whether it was the higher realm, Eye of Insight, this was something that he dared not even imagine. After all, this was an ability that even most 6-star master teacher didn't possess. How could it appear in a 2-star master teacher who wasn't even 20 yet? Even so, just the thought that the other party had reached lucid analytical realm had already left him incredibly shocked. What kind of monster was the other party? You. Having his neck grabbed, a mix of shock and fear surfaced on Ding Mu's face. He thought that by using the blood-burning secret art and his most powerful move, even if he wasn't a match for the other party, he would still be able to stand his own ground. He didn't even consider the possibility of being subdued as soon as he made a move. Don't kill me. I was bewitched by that woman, Lin Long, back then. I was blind to have made a move on you. As long as you don't kill me, I'll give you whatever you want. Anything that is within Xianxia Kingdom's means, I'll give it to you. Even 100 or 200 spirit stones isn't a problem at all. The young man before him had defeated Luo Qianhong, dispelled the great Xianxia formation, and even his final ace was crushed that easily. This time, Ding Mu truly felt frightened and helpless. Xianxia Kingdom was qualified to deal with spirit stones, and as long as the other party was willing to spare him, no amount of wealth was too much. Spirit stones. Zhongxian shook his head. If not for Lu Chong taking the blow for him, he would already have been dead. Could spirit stones be used to trade for the welfare of his student? Since I said that I'll kill you, then pardon me. Only one fate awaits you. Zhongxian's eyebrows shot up as he exerted more force through his fingers. Great-grandfather, save me. Seeing that Zhongxian was about to really make a move, Ding Mu's face paled and he hurriedly shouted for help. Let him go. As soon as Ding Mu shouted for help, a loud bellow reverberated across the entire city. It sounded as though the rumbling of a thunder, shaking the ground and buildings in the area. Frowning, Zhongxian glanced over. The voice came from the depths of the royal palace right in front of him. Deep and steady, those words seemed to wield an immense pressure. Even despite Zhongxian's recent massive breakthrough, he found himself on the verge of caving in from the pressure. Strong. He clenched his fists tightly. Accompanied with the Eye of Insight and Library of Heaven's Path, Zhongxian could match up to even a half-transcension at his current strength. Yet, the other party was able to induce such a sensation within him with just words. Without a doubt, the other party's cultivation definitely exceeded that of Luo Qianhong, reaching that legendary realm. He didn't expect such an expert to exist amidst the Xianxia royal family. Great-grandfather? Could it be? He isn't dead yet. Atop of the savage beast, Grand Elder Wei Yuqing's face darkened. You know this man. Gongzi turned to look at Grand Elder Wei Yuqing. UN. Grand Elder Wei Yuqing nodded. There's a ranking board for the strongest experts within Xianxia Kingdom known as the Green Leaf Board, and on it, despite being a half-transcension expert and a 3-star intermediate master teacher, Luo Qianhong was only in the 3rd place. 3rd place. Gongzi and Jin Songhai glanced at one another. They had seen the pavilion master's strength for themselves previously when he made a move on Zhongxian. Even though he was defeated by Zhongxian in an instant, his true strength shouldn't be underestimated. Among half-transcension expert, he definitely ranked amidst the top. Yet, with such strength, he was only placed at the 3rd rank. Who could the other 2 in front of him be? The one ranked second is not a cultivator, but the greatest backing of Xianxia Kingdom, a half-transcension savage beast, Steelback Winged Dragon. Grand Elder Wei Yuqing said. You're referring to that powerful savage beast which possesses a trace of the dragon bloodline. Jin Songhai frowned. Similar to the nightmare beast, the Steelback Winged Dragon also possessed the dragon bloodline. Even though it was extremely thin, it granted them a portion of the overwhelming strength of the dragon tribe. It possessed steel wings as sharp as knives, and its speed was one that would leave the mouths of onlookers agape. Thick scales filled its body, granting it an impenetrable defense. On top of that, it possessed immense strength and stamina as well. From birth, it was already destined to reach half-transcension realm. In fact, with its powerful physical traits, it could even match up with some of the weaker spirit beasts. The other conferred kingdoms may not know much about the great Xianxia Kingdom, but the Steelback Winged Dragon is common knowledge. This was precisely the reason why, despite Emperor Ding Chong's weak personality, no kingdom dared to turn their blades to us. As the Grand Elder of the Beast Hall, there was no way Wei Yuqing wouldn't know about such a powerful savage beast in Xianxia Kingdom. If not for this formidable backing, even if Zhongxian didn't do anything at all, this kingdom would have been annexed by the other conferred kingdoms already. But if the Steelback Winged Dragon is only ranked at 2nd place, could the 1st place refer to? Jiyu Mu turned his gaze over in astonishment. That's right, it's the person who had just spoken, Crown Prince Ding Mu's great-grandfather, the 178th Emperor of Xianxia Kingdom. Ding Hong. Grand Elder Wei Yuqing clenched his fists tightly as he said, this Ding Hong could be considered a genius among geniuses. 80 years ago, he was already the #1 expert in the kingdom. Just that, one day, he faded out of public view. Even I had thought that he was already dead, and the reason why his name remained on the Green Leaf Board was out of remembrance. Yet, to think that he was still alive. The #1 expert 80 years ago? But his lifespan. Jiyu Mu widened his eyes in shock. Making the breakthrough to Zhizuan realm meant that one's level of existence had reached greater heights, and there would be an overall enhancement in one's physical attributes. Even though one's lifespan would be increased as well, this increment was minimal, perhaps just a few years at best. Under normal circumstances, 100 years was already the limit for most Zhizuan realm experts. If Ding Hong was the #1 expert of the kingdom 80 years ago, he must have at least reached the half-transcension realm at that time. To be still living now. Didn't this mean that he was already beyond 100 years old? If it's really him, he should be 115 this year. Grand Elder Wei Yuqing said. 115? Transcendent Mortal 1 Dan. Prolonged Longevity Realm. Jin Songhai asked. The Transcendent Mortal Realm, also known as the Surmounting Mortality Realm and the Mortal Metamorphosis Realm, meant overcoming the limits of a mortal and reaching a brand new level of existence. This was the terminology used for the realms, and just like the Fighter 9 Dans, it had 9 different realms to it as well. 1 Dan Prolonged Longevity Realm. Upon reaching this level, there would be a huge leap in one's level of existence. At this realm, one would be able to absorb the spiritual energy in the world to heal the various traumas cultivating had brought to them, and through such means, enhance their longevity. At Fighter Realm, even if one had reached Zhizuan Realm Pinnacle or even half-transcension, surpassing the century limit was an extremely difficult task. But if one were to reach this higher realm, one's longevity could potentially be doubled to 200 years. Given that Ding Hong was still alive and kicking despite exceeding the 100-year mark, he must have made the breakthrough to become a full-fledged transcendent mortal expert. To think that there would be a transcendent mortal expert in Xianxia Kingdom. There is a huge gap between the strength of a transcendent mortal cultivator and a half-transcension cultivator. Gongzi, should we help him? Jin Songhai asked grimly. Even though it was just a difference of a small cultivation realm, it represented the difference between a mortal and a transcendent being. How could the two begin to compare with one another? Zhong Xian might be able to defeat a half-transcension expert easily, but a transcendent mortal was definitely beyond his means. With such a huge difference in their level of existence, there was no way his fighting prowess could match up to Ding Hong. It was just like how the possibility of a human defeating a tiger bare-handed was practically zero. Wait a moment first. Let's see how he deals with this matter. We'll only help him when things look dire. Gongzi shook his head. The other party had defeated a half-transcension expert easily and stopped the Great Xianxia formation with just a single finger. The means that he had displayed had piqued Gongzi's curiosity. He was interested to see if the other party had any unique methods to deal with a transcendent mortal expert. Besides, Jin Songhai was a person who had traveled quite far in the path of a transcendent mortal. With his strength, it wasn't difficult for him to subdue a prolonged longevity realm in an instant. Thus, there was no harm in doing so. UN. Nodding his head, Jin Songhai turned his gaze back to the field below. Jiu Mu and the others also anxiously shifted their sights. You're a master teacher, right? Can you sell me a favor and let this unfilial progeny of mine off? I'm willing to offer you 2,000 spirit stones in exchange for this favor. After a moment of hesitation, the deep and ancient voice echoed once more. 2,000 spirit stones. The breathing of the crowd hastened. The value of a spirit stone was immense. It was difficult to trade for a single one even with a massive sum of gold. Yet, the other party offered 2,000 spirit stones immediately. This was truly a generous offer. With so many spirit stones, one could buy up the entire Qianwu kingdom. To be giving away wealth equivalent to the value of a Tier 1 kingdom just to save Ding Mu, it was clear to see how important the latter was to him. Upon hearing those words, Zhong Xian was stunned as well. Even when he was at the peak of his wealth, he only had 15 spirit stones in his possession. He knew how valuable spirit stones were, and this 2,000 spirit stones would surely contribute greatly to his cultivation. That's right, 2,000 spirit stones. I believe you should understand the value of my offer. The elder spoke slowly and deeply. Besides, you have nothing to gain from killing him. Rather, you'll face my relentless pursuit for revenge then. You are a wise man, so I believe you should know what to choose. The other party's voice may seem calm, but it was laced with threat. If Zhong Xian truly intended to make a move, Ding Hong would surely step forward and kill him. Hearing the other party's threat, Zhong Xian clenched his fists tightly together. Zhong Xian loved money, and he was in dire need of spirit stones as well. However, he would never compromise his own principles for such material wealth. If he were to do so, how could he face Lu Chong when he finally wakes up? Catcher! With a slight exertion of force, his grip tightened and a crisp sound echoed. Before Ding Mu could make a single sound, his head tilted and he breathed his last breath. Putong! The corpse was thrown to the ground. You! Audacious! Not expecting that this young fellow would actually kill Ding Mu despite all that he had said, Ding Hong couldn't hold back his rage anymore. The restraint present in his voice previously vanished, and his bellow reached even the heavens, threatening to tear the sky apart. Hualala! Hearing that thunderous voice, the crowd who was watching the commotion suddenly lost their balance and fell to the ground. The rage of a transcendent mortal caused even the skies to pale. This is bad. He should have just exchanged for the 2,000 spirit stones. Indeed, he's really doomed this time. That's a transcendent mortal. No matter how powerful he is, it's impossible for him to be a match for Ding Hong. An uproar broke out beneath the heavens altar as well. Clearly, they didn't expect Zhong Xian to kill Ding Mu either. Even more so, they didn't think that there would be such a formidable expert behind Xianxia Kingdom. With just a loud bellow, he was able to make so many cultivators topple down. His strength was terrifying. Even though Zhongsha had shown them plenty of miracles before, no one thought his prospects looked good. There was too huge of a gap between transcendent mortals and fighters. It was like a battle between a god and a mortal. There was completely no hope of victory. Transcendent mortal. Xianxia, I've brought harm to you. Mo Yu's face paled, and her body trembled uncontrollably. She knew that Xianyuan Kingdom was powerful, and without the strength of a Zhizuan realm pinnacle, it was best not to cause any trouble here. However, she couldn't have imagined that the famous old ancestor who had rattled the entire kingdom during his time was actually still alive. And on top of that, he was stronger than he was back then. Putting aside the increment in one's strength upon reaching transcendent mortal realm, transcendent mortals could tap into the energy existent in the surroundings, making no fighter a match for them. As long as this old ancestor made a move, no matter how many aces Xianxia had up his sleeves, it would be futile. Master teachers had the ability to see through flaws, but it didn't guarantee their omnipotence. It was just like how everyone knew that the easiest way to capture a city was to destroy its walls. But without sufficient strength, could one do so? It was one thing to know the flaws, but it was another thing to be able to exploit them. Upon reaching transcendent mortal, one's physical attributes would have raised to a whole new level. On top of that, most weaknesses would be hidden as well. Even if one was able to find an opening, without sufficient speed and strength to get past the enemy's defense, it would be impossible to get to it. Roar! Just as everyone was anxious and worried about what was to happen, the deafening roar of a beast sounded from the depths of the royal palace. Then, a bolt of lightning streaked out from within, and a figure appeared in the aerial space above the heaven's altar. It was a massive aerial savage beast with a length of 10 meters, and when its gigantic wings were spread open, it spanned a width of 30 meters. Thick scales covered its entire body, and the sharp aura it exuded was greatly intimidating. Steelback winged dragon. Xianxia's eyebrows shot up. Having read so many books on beast taming, Xianxia instantly recognized this beast that was at the pinnacle of savage beasts. Similar to the nightmare beast, it was a half-transcendent savage beast which possessed the dragon bloodline as well. However, this fellow was significantly stronger, and its nature was even more callous as well. It was already frightening that there was a transcendent mortal old ancestor in the royal palace. To think that there would be such a formidable savage beast on top of that. As expected of a conferred kingdom, Xianxia had truly underestimated the other party. A man stood proudly on the back of the steelback winged dragon. This person wasn't as old as his voice sounded, and he looked like he was only in his 50s this year. The aura he exuded felt as vast as the ocean, making it impossible for one to peer into its depths. Upon reaching prolonged longevity realm, one's aged body would also become younger as well. Even though this old ancestor of the Xianyuan Kingdom was already beyond 100 years old, he didn't look as old as Xianxia expected. It's indeed him. Luo Qianhong's eyes narrowed. Even though he had never met this old ancestor before, he had seen his painting before. All along, he had thought that the other party was dead. Yet, not only was the other party still alive, he was still vigorous. I gave you a chance, it's a pity that you didn't grasp it well. Clenching his jaws tightly, Ding Hong stared down at Xianxia coldly. He doted on that great-grandson of his greatly. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made Ding Chong bestow him with the position of the crown prince so early on. Yet, this fellow actually dared to kill his beloved grandson right before him. Unforgivable. Boom! The voice reverberated from the heavens, falling down upon Xianxia like a plummeting massive hammer.
Deng 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 deng.
Xianxia felt a stifling sensation in his chest, as though someone had struck it forcefully. His face paled and he was forced to retreat several steps backward to ward off the force. A transcendent mortal expert was already capable of manipulating the strength of the world. It wasn't difficult for him to launch an attack from a distance. It was just like Su Shi back then. With a single sound, he made the gold-scaled lightning beast fall from the sky and dealt Liang Qingming severe injuries. Ding Hong's cultivation was not a match for Su Shi, and Xianxia was significantly stronger than Liang Qingming as well. Even so, he was still knocked back by the other party's words. The strength of a transcendent mortal was indeed fearsome. I didn't grasp the chance. Pardon me, but even if I could redo it, I'd still kill him. Driving his heaven's path Xianxia, Xianxia dispelled the pressure on him and glanced into the sky. Eye of insight. Lines of insight flowed within Xianxia's eyes as he tried to look into the flaws of the other party, but as expected, it was futile. At Xianxia's current level, he could only peer into the flaws of those at most a small cultivation realm higher than him, meaning a half-transcension expert. His eye of insight was completely useless against a transcendent mortal expert at his current cultivation. Despite knowing that his ability as a master teacher was completely useless to him at the moment, Xianxia didn't panic. Without any hesitation, he turned to the Library of Heaven's Path. Flaws. Who? A book appeared in his mind. The other party was exerting pressure on him through his voice, and this could be considered as a battle technique of some sort. Thus, the Library of Heaven's Path was able to compile a book on him. Xianxia hurriedly flung it open and browsed through it. After a quick look, Xianxia's face turned grave. There were many flaws on Ding Hong detailed in the book, but given Xianxia's current cultivation, even if he knew of them, he still couldn't pose a threat to the other party. It was just like how even if an infant knew that the crotch was a man's weakness, putting aside whether the infant could strike it or not, even if he could, he might not be able to injure the other party. Xianxia's current strength totaled up to 50,000 ding, but wounding a transcendent mortal expert with such a level of strength was still nigh impossible. In other words, this was a hopeless battle for Xianxia. Since you wish to die, I'll grant your wish. Seeing how this fellow still dared to talk back to him under such circumstances, Ding Hong harumphed coldly. Roar! The steel-back-winged dragon immediately flapped its massive wings violently. Sue! The immense body of the beast swooped down as though an arrow released from a bowstring, and in the blink of an eye, it was already right before Xianxia, threatening to sweep across Xianxia with its dagger-like wings. Judging from the shrilling sound, it seemed that even metal would be torn apart under the sharpness of the wings, less to say, a human. Xianxia narrowed his eyes. While his Heaven's Path golden body too granted him incredible defense, he knew that his body wouldn't be able to withstand this attack. Who? Heaven's Path movement art. In the blink of an eye, he appeared at a distance several dozen meters away, thus dodging this assault. Roar! Missing the attack, the steel-back-winged dragon immediately turned around in midair and darted toward Xianxia once more. Xianxia retreated once more. Having the same situation happen again and again, Xianxia's face turned grim. Even though the number of times Xianxia could use the Heaven's Path movement art had increased due to the rise in his cultivation, he knew that there was a limit to his stamina. If this went on, it would just be a matter of time before his Xianxia ran out. It's not a solution to continue dodging like that, but a half-transcension realm savage beast and a transcendent mortal expert. Xianxia isn't a match for either of them. Indeed, Xianxia is in a bad position. A tense look was on everyone's faces. Putting aside the transcendent mortal realm Ding Hong, even the steel-back-winged dragon, placed second on the green leaf board, wasn't an existence that fighter realm cultivators could deal with. Putting aside its powerful defense and overwhelming offensive ability, more importantly, it was able to fly. No matter how powerful Xianxia was, he could only withstand its assault. After all, it was impossible for Xianxia to fly into the skies and knock it down. Will Xianxia be killed? Someone amidst the crowd asked. Xianxia had just helped him achieve a breakthrough, and he owed him a debt of gratitude. Yet, upon seeing that the other party was in a difficult situation, he wasn't able to do anything at all. Thus, he panicked. If Xianxia knocks the steel-back-winged dragon down, there might still be a chance. But is that possible? Another person replied. The steel-back-winged dragon was a half-transcension realm savage beast. Its aerial capability was its greatest strength, so how could it give up on it? The only possibility was for one to cripple its flying capability, but even if one possessed sufficient strength to break through its nearly impenetrable defense, one had to be able to catch up with it first. In other words, the steel-back-winged dragon was already in a position that made it impossible to lose. If this went on, Xianxia would only be killed. The crowd fell silent. They were anxious, but there was nothing they could do. You sure dodge fast. Let's see how many more times you can avoid its attacks. Since the crowd was able to analyze this much, Ding Hong, being a mortal transcendent expert, was able to do so as well. Sneering coldly, he stared at Xianxia haughtily as if he were looking at a dead person. So what if you could run fast? Can you exceed the flying speed of the steel-back winged dragon? You're right, I can't go on dodging its attacks forever. Xianxia abruptly came to a stop. Lifting his head, he said, since that's the case, I'll stop dodging then. You'll stop dodging? Ha ha ha, accept your death then. Harumphing coldly, Ding Hong was just about to get the steel-back winged dragon to advance toward Xianxia when a sharp voice suddenly echoed from below. Moo! Putong! Before Ding Hong could react, his footing suddenly disappeared. Along with the steel-back winged dragon, he plummeted head down into the ground, raising a huge cloud of dust. Thank you for listening to Panda Audiobooks. If you love what you hear and want to support my work, check out the PayPal link in the description. Every bit helps. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notifications bell to stay updated with all our latest audiobook chapters. We'll see you in the next one.